All right. We're back with another episode of the John Bartolo Show. I want to take a minute and thank all the sponsors. I want to give special thanks to Gallo Technologies, Rhino Metals for all the tables, Blackwater Ammunition, Enforce Weapon Lights. Go check them out. Some new lights there. Blackwater Ammo, as I said before, Galco Leather Holsters, Quartz Firearms, Right On Optics, and Pulsar, new sponsor, Pulsar. Go check them out. The links are all down below, everybody. Don't forget Manscaped. Your balls will thank you. Got a special guest today. I might be more excited about this guest as far as the industry goes, tactical, hunting, everything. I got a real insider's insider today. He doesn't come out that often to speak, but when he does, it's meaningful. We got my brother from another mother, the one and only Ace Luciano. What's going on?
Well, I'm happy to be here, John.
This is amazing.
It's about time. I've had studio envy for as long as you set this place up, and I keep saying, man, I got to break away and go visit Bartolo and go sit and see the studio and hang out a little bit. And finally, the thing that drove me to say, I've just got to make the time and do it. And as you well know, this week we usually have this whole week put aside because for 12
SHOT
days,
Show.
Yeah, I'm usually here in Vegas anyway for SHOT Show, and it's like there's a hole in my soul this year. You know, I didn't know what to do with myself for the past 10, 12 days.
Is that crazy? We complain about it so much, yet when it's missing, we're like, fuck. So what do you think of the place?
That's beautiful. Oh, it's beautiful. The setup you got here is...
It's perfect, right? It does the trick.
Yeah, I mean, there's,
the scope of it that people see does it no justice.
The gun wall is amazing. I need one of these in my bedroom.
There's what, maybe like 50 pieces up there or so. It's fun. It's fun. I mean, the whole building, this project, it's funny, and this is a good thing to get into. This is I would say, I can't take credit for it, right? So this was me failing at a lot of places in how to create media and how to create consumable media and how to create an arbitrage of media. So I guess like failing forward is the best way to put it. But I wish every company had this in some shape or form.
Every company that has a half a brain has this. I mean, if you look into Fortune 500 companies now, you go into any one and you walk in the front doors and you see a sign that says studio this way. Like they all have their own media production suite. They all have their own stuff. And it's just, as in typical fashion, we're kind of, everything filters down through the industry, right? So a decade after people were really getting things done on social media, the outdoor hunting industry decided, hey, this might work. Maybe we should do some of this, and some of the other things that they do, like the email marketing and the video content and the content generation. There's been content generation in the industry forever. I mean, content generation started with the first outdoor magazine that was published.
Now, you've been around forever in this business, and I don't say
a while. I don't want to say forever. A lot of people have been here a lot longer than me, but I tell everybody I didn't come over and tickle it. I jumped in.
Yeah.
So,
but it begs the question, why, it's a good first question for you. Why are companies so reluctant to take the plunge and start to generate their own media? Why is that such a reluctance? And we're so reliant on outside sources for media generation, for content generation.
It's funny because traditionally, I've said this for a long time, right? I said years ago to clients in the retail industry, you better prepare. This is going away, right? And nobody believed me because things were good. Times were good. We were selling a lot of stuff, Obama was president. Monkeys could sell guns and ammo, you put together anything, right? But if you put together anything that had AR in front of it, it sold out immediately, right? And there were so many bad habits, but the industry even back then was so they were so used to a certain method of doing things, right? And you've got your old school guys that were and gals that were in a lot of high positions that, what's the key to success? Well, the key to success is you have a product, and the product is a good product, but it doesn't work at all until you get it in a full page ad in some major magazine, and it goes out and the people see it and all that. Well, the internet had already disrupted that by 2010. I mean, things were changing. I was right in the middle of the ad world in 2006 when the world really started like changing up and AdWords started going crazy, right? I was right in the middle of all that. I was working as an ad rep. I was, and I was marketing. I was dealing with some of these big companies, things like large law firms. And man, I took a look at some of these lawyers that had $1 million budgets for advertising. We're talking a law firm with like 3 guys and a staff in it, chilling out $1 million on commercials, on website building and things, back then, 10, 20 grand a month in AdWords and just all of these things that were really pushing the edge on getting stuff. And I tell everybody, if you want to see good marketing, you look at several types of industries that are typical consumer advertisers, right? You look at plumbers, you look at lawyers, you look at plastic surgeons. Okay. Plastic surgeon, they're in a cash business, man. If they don't get people in the door, they don't get paid. They're going and fixing up accident victims and getting their, whatever, a couple $100,000. But most of these guys are multimillionaires. They're making millions of dollars. And they're the ones that, that are having the fancy TV commercials, the big full page ads. Well, to go back to your question, why don't people do their own generating content? Because self-content generation is new. Because everybody thinks, well, what do I have to say that other people might find interesting? And it's funny because I started generating some content way back in 2006, right? And when I did that, when I first started generating some content, it was on a relatively new platform, LinkedIn. It was
you're amazing on, by the way.
Well, it was just by accident that I chose that platform. Before I got into advertising and marketing and promotions and things, I worked for a pharmaceutical company. I was a pharma rep. And when I moved over to that, I happened to have a connection that was connected to LinkedIn. And he told me, he's like, oh man, he goes, this is what you got to do this. You got to put all your background and all that on LinkedIn. And you've got to, this is the future. There's not going to be resumes anymore. Everyone's going to be on LinkedIn and this is going to be the professional world. Right. So I put all my stuff up on there in typical business fashion, actually. I did everything that I could on there, and then I sat back and waited for it all to come, and it just didn't. It was basically me. I used to have a badge on my LinkedIn profile that said 10,000. I was one of the first 10,000 users on LinkedIn. And
I believe it.
And it was me and 9,000 techie guys. And it was almost useless to me.
See, so everybody understands when as Ace's arc was, we would hear of each other and we would interact briefly at shows and events. I was coming up on the what I like to call the street side of the business. I was running around ranges and participating in demos, and companies were giving me their social media to run, which social media was like, hey, we got this thing. It's called Instagram, and it took years and years and years to convince the industry that Instagram was a viable thing. And then when they did, they started putting, people in charge of it, and it became, a viable place to build a brand identity. And, Ace and I converged a few times on different things and different projects through the years. And I always, loved his approach. And I always thought, everything's cyclical in media, and we've been in this business long enough to see things go away and come back. Yeah. Like I'm very bullish now on blogging. We've seen blogging go away and come back. Yeah. And the reason for that is the way people, you don't have to look far, right? You look at your kids or you look at your nephew and how they consume media. And essentially what a 6 to 12 minute video on YouTube is a vlog. It's a blog. These types of write-ups that you see, that people want to consume, especially now in the COVID era, post-COVID era, you're going to see people consuming, short blurbs about the business. The struggle in our business that I've seen, and we'll get to the elections and the politics that'll all play into this. The struggle I've seen in our business is the ability for companies to move quickly. Like it took us 10 years to convince the establishment of the industry that Instagram was a viable thing to invest time and resources into. Hey, we need these photos. The context of Instagram isn't great. We know that. We know that now because you're betting on how much someone's willing to swipe down, which is a terrible bet. And you're also, you're not getting the full story. It's a quick photo and a little blurb.
Mm.
So it's a good place for brand ID. We can't, as an industry, take that long to convince the industry the next thing, whatever the next thing is, Ace. That's part of the problem and part of the struggle. Like I had the guys from Guns Out TV on the other day, and we were talking about that. And they're on TV. And that's exciting for the industry.
Right.
You know, they organically got this chance to do a TV show. So my big fear, and I say this to all, you know, because I look at you as hope. I look at guys like you, Tom Taylor, as hope in the industry. I truly mean that because
I'm flattered.
because there's a chasm between the 25 to 45-year-old and the 55 to 65-year-old in the business.
There is.
And there's a huge chasm.
It's a totally different paradigm, right? Guys older than me, I'm kind of like, I straddle that. I straddle both. I live in both worlds, right?
But it's because of your mindset.
Yeah, but the guys older than me are all, they're like handheld print magazine guys. And, you know, when I talk about digital ads and I talk about the vlogging and blogging and all that and stuff, that is not to be taken by anybody out there that magazine articles and ads and publishing and stuff doesn't work. Like, it's funny. You talked about things being cyclical. The fact that the cost for the advertising costs in print publications has dropped so dramatically means that there's a huge opportunity for people.
Tremendous value.
You know, you talk about like how proof of concept, right? How does it work? Can I talk about one of your sponsors for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So Right On Optics. 6 years ago, relatively unknown company, right?
Laughed at,
right? Laughed at in the industry, right?
I can remember a company called Vortex is the same thing.
Right. You know, and you look at, and Vortex is actually a case study in how to rapidly evolve and adapt marketing, right? They went and they said, you know what, we're going to take our product out to these shoots and we're going to find guys that are doing good things and we're just going to get it in their hands and we're going to pay them, you know, and it worked out well for them. Well, now we've kind of bloated that market. Now everybody's an influencer. How do you tell who gets an ROI and how, you know, there's good and bad in everything, right?
Yeah.
Right. But the one thing that I tell people, I'm like, you know, I did some work with Right On, and I know all the folks over there.
Sure.
And I got to tell people the biggest key to Right On's success was the vision of Brady Speth, the CEO, because his vision was try it. His vision was try a bunch of things and then put money behind what works, right? Now, you looked at the meteoric rise of Right On over the last 5 years and compare that to other optics companies in the industry, even new ones. I think the year Right On did their big launch, there were 13 new optics companies out there, right?
If not more.
But you go to SHOT Show and like those were the ones that were really pushing some stuff out and, you know, having media credentials. I get a lot of the press releases. I get a lot of things that go back and forth, right? And you go, how do you compete with all that? You do what works and you do things that other people aren't doing, or you do things differently than people are doing. And, you know, the whole, I tell people all the time, you know, when people complain about advertising, like if you're complaining about your advertising, chances are you're screwing up. Chances are you're screwing up. And that screw up might be your agency.
Right.
The screw up might be the people that are working in your company. And if there's one piece of advice that I would throw out to every company in the industry, man, trust your people. I see so many people in high-level positions.
We'll get to advice.
Yeah, but I see so many people in these higher-level positions that you can tell they're afraid to try because if they fail, they're, instead of being rewarded for failure, you said it before, right? When we were talking earlier, fail forward. Like the best way to succeed is to try a bunch of stuff and fail and go, okay, that didn't work. In marketing, we call that testing, right? We don't call that failing. We call it testing. That test worked. We now know that doesn't work. Now we got to move to the next thing, right? But fail a lot and you'll be successful, and encourage your people to fail, right? I just listened to Jocko Willink's book, Extreme Accountability. And then I listened to it again. And man, there are just so many pearls of wisdom and nuggets in that book that like you just pull out, you go, man, I would rewind it and listen to it again. And they're talking about the how the SEAL teams work together and how everybody on that team is empowered to make decisions. And I think especially in this industry, you look at, even if I look back to some of the business books that I've read and studied, one of my favorites is Good to Great by Jim Collins.
Yeah, it's a great book.
You read that book and you go, here's a guy that gets it. They studied companies, there's a lot of good companies, but how does a company make that leap from good to great, right? And one of the things that keeps a company from being great, he talks about are tyrannical leaders, right? When you have a leader that they might lead the company and they might have a really successful company, but if that leader is a tyrannical leader, then that company is losing potential gain. They could be even that much factor better, right, than they are.
So, not to stop you, but there's so much to unpack in what you just said. There's a lot there, and you're right. One of my favorite books that I think defines the way I approach things is Never Eat Alone. So I believe that you can only get your best on the job training by being in the field of whatever it is that you're trying to do. So if you want to get good at podcasting, it's do more podcasting, right?
Yep.
And get out there and talk to people and learn the art of communication and be able to carry a dialogue, a debate, a conversation, whatever. Too many in marketing departments, and I want to establish, before we go down rabbit holes of topics, I want to establish where the industry as a whole is right now, the way we both see it. And I think my listenership has a good understanding of the way I see it, and I think you do too. And I feel as if my thing is, people say sometimes, John, well, you're negative or you're down on it. I'm not down on it. My point is,
you're real on it.
Yeah.
It's real. The truth isn't good or bad. It's just the truth, man.
How do we fix it and move it forward? What suggestions do we make to move it forward? And it has to start with a conversation and a dialogue. And that's one of the things, I see people, we joke about this all the time. I see people that see my LinkedIn, because you see how many people see the post and then I see how many people are afraid to like it or afraid to be, but they'll message me. And I get these calls, and I talk to these people. Now you get a great interaction on LinkedIn. And it's a testament to you and the way you've approached it. And I'm a little bit more like a bull in a china shop approaching it. And I know that. But I always say,
it's all right. You move forward. Man.
Better to make a good decision now and then struggle to make a great one later. Yeah. But I look at this industry, and I see so much potential right now. But we're kind of like in the 80s when Lawrence Taylor came in and became a linebacker for the Giants. He made a quantum leap for what linebacking was in the NFL. Now is the time we have to make a quantum leap, because we're faced with so much adversity, systemic risk coming from the election, systemic risk coming from the shutdown of social media platforms. You and I are of the same thinking in this, that we could walk into 10 marketing departments during SHOT Show this week and say, your Instagram is gone tomorrow. Your platform's gone tomorrow. What do you do? What do you do? And I've had many of these conversations.
Take a look. Look at what happened to the president of the United States. Totally deplatformed across everything. Shame on us for not anticipating that. Shame on this industry. You mark my words, right now, today, we are balancing a knife edge right now. All of these companies could flip that switch.
We're on a hairpin.
And 60%, 70% of the companies out there will be toast. I know holster companies that several have reached out to me and go, wow, we really wish we had listened to you when you're talking about putting out our own stuff and getting our own audience and getting our own herd and fencing our own herd, and this is because everyone is shiny object, right? Instagram, Facebook, do all this. Man, they flip that switch, you're gone.
A lot of companies out there, they do media by triage. That's how they approach media. It's by triage. Right. Oh, we need a photo shoot, run out to the range. Oh, we need this. So it's all triage based. And everybody who knows me knows I'm not necessarily pro podcast. I don't necessarily say to every company, you got to have a podcast, but you have to build multiple channels of media. You have to be omni-channel. You have to have multiple channels. I look at companies that have the infrastructure to do it. And the reason when Guns Out was on, I'm so hard on entities like the NSSF, for example, is because you have all the resources in the world. You look at something like the NRA that poured $4 million into the Georgia election. For example, imagine 400,000 of that put into their infrastructure to actually build paywalls, to build structure, to actually build something that could maybe help professional shooting advertise better, to help create more omni-channel marketing, to maybe rebuild where Ackerman McQueen left off, to continue to carry that mantle and be a thought leader in the business. Instead, we get reliant on website based reach outs, giving away a holster or giving away a hat or a pin. And to me, these solutions are very easy to fix, and that's where I talk about the disconnect, the chasm. I'm left standing there saying, do you have a cell phone? Because you can do all that with a cell phone. You can literally power a satellite with a cell phone. So my frustration, Ace, comes from when they sit with you and they say, we're like a ship and we take a while to turn and we're trying. It's not hard. It's literally not hard.
Yeah, I think when you...
And I said this to, I'm not going to name the company, but I said this to a very large company, and I'm not naming it because I have a lot of friends there. You can read between the lines. I said, what you have to do when you get too big or you feel like you are that ship, you have to almost create like an A-team, like a crack commando unit. You have to say, we're going to hire Ace or John or whoever, and we're going to give you 2 or 3 guys, and we're going to split you off, and you're going to headline this project.
Right. You have your own, this is your side of the table. Like, you're over there. We're going to keep doing what we're doing over here, but you know what? Here's 25 grand. Take this and run with it, and we want to see what you can do with it,
and
you know?
Look at what like Bob Iger does with Disney+. He has John Favreau, Filoni, and he says, you guys are going to run with this.
Right.
And that's the way to do it. You know, now the reason I bring up that example is if you think I'm crazy when I mention things like streaming and paywalls, literally the head of Disney, one of the largest companies on the planet that owns ABC, ESPN, they own everything that we, you know, a lot of what we consume, not everything.
And have really, 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 really crappy politics, by the way.
But they literally have come out and said, streaming is our number one thing the next 5 years. That is our number one thing. So wrapped into that
there's
is a
no
lot.
movies in. There's no movie theaters. You can't go to a movie theater anymore. So they're dead in the water. I was just reading about that. The typical year, it's $40 billion in movie ticket sales or something like that. This past year, it was 2.
Yep.
2.
So when I interpret that, what I see is a rise in paywalls. Now we see HBO Max trying to jump into the mix.
Yep.
Everybody is absorbing things a la carte. So whether you put an emphasis on YouTube, but as a company, you know, and I've had Matt Wolf on from Enforce and other people, and, you know, some companies don't necessarily want to produce all their media or their media. That's fine. Bring in somebody, right? You bring in people that can help you with that. But you have to develop some clear program, because if you don't create the narrative, someone else is going to create it for you. And that's where it becomes dangerous.
Right.
And I use the examples of whether it's Coca-Cola, Nike, other brands out there. We see too many brands managed and run by engineers that overthink and think the situation away and don't ever want to just try. And when you talk about the failing forward, they don't want to try. And when I look at examples like the NSSF, this is a great opportunity for them to get SHOT Show right, to clean it up and move it forward. But when I go online and I see the offerings that they offer and times like this and the thing, like now is a great time to be offering so much free online stuff to build up a portal.
I got to tell you, I got a lot of friends at the NSSF. Less of them are there now. They had some big cuts go through. And a lot of those folks are looking for job stuff. And I look at that and I go, one, how does that happen? Right? How does that happen?
In the most bullish industry right now.
Right now, and folks, if you think for a second that we can get by without the NRA and without the NSSF, you're out of your mind.
No, we need them.
Like, we need them, right? Could things be done better across the industry? Absolutely. But we need those organizations. We need the companies with them. We need the support. And, you know, we talk about SHOT Show not being this week. And I knew, in my heart, I knew this was going to happen. I look at the digital version of stuff, and it's just not the same. We're not there yet. We're not in a virtual world yet, right? For as much as a lot of us complain about all the time and all of that, I enjoy SHOT Show, but I'm a people person. I'm a social guy. I like to do business across the table. I like to sit and go face to face. I would rather fly across the country to meet with you than talk to you over the phone, you know, as a client. Now, for prospect, you know, obviously you can't just waste all of your money on that. You can't waste all of your money on flying across the country when you could get a lot of that done, a lot of those meetings done virtually. And there's a lot to be said for that, and that's just smart business. But man, when you have a good client, you need FaceTime, you need to talk, you need to evaluate, you know, each other, and there has to be emotion. And like I tell people, you get this because we're both Italian, right? I have to tell people a lot. I'm like, look, listen, I'm animated, I'm emotional, and I'm passionate, and I'm loud. Like when I was a kid, the house was loud, you know, and the way you got heard was to be louder. You
Squeaky
know,
wheel
and
gets the
yeah,
grease.
exactly. It's not. There's nothing bad about it, but I have people say that combined with many years in a duck blind with no earplugs, I mean, I could,
Yeah.
I can't even hear if they're,
I understand that.
if they're not loud, right? So you talk to people and you go, look, I'm a passionate guy. Don't mistake passion for anger. Okay. When I'm angry, you'll know I'm angry. And usually if I'm really angry, that's when I get quiet. If I'm quiet, you need to worry. Like that means something's wrong.
Right.
And when you talk to people in the industry, obviously there's different folks and there's different personalities and everything. And this is a great, when you think of the varied personalities that we see in this, right? I think it's a good reflection of what the industry itself could be. But when you look at kind of everybody jumping onto the same boat, I use the lifeboat analogy, right? Like if the lifeboat only holds so many people, if you get one person over the capacity of that thing, you're all going down. So why more companies aren't looking for new and novel things to do in marketing instead of doing the same old? And I sat with another one. This is a big company, a big company marketing person. And they came to me and he was so frustrated. He's like, I don't know. I can't get into it. We have these great ideas, and I put all this stuff, and I looked into all the stuff you suggested. And he's great. He's like, that sounds good. So, what commercials are we going to run on the 3 TV shows we're going to sponsor this year, and what print ads are we going to run in the 5 magazines that we advertise for? And it was like they didn't even hear him. Like, yeah, that sounds great. We should do that, but we're just going to do the same old stuff, right? So. I laughed and I said, did you expect anything different? He's like, I really did, because they're really good ideas. I'm like, but you don't understand. They're going on past, not future. If you do any investing, what's the very first thing you see in every prospectus? Past performance is no guarantee or indicator of future results, right? So you always got to be looking, what is that next thing? What is that next thing? Look at, I remember in the days when the UFC first started. And I happened to be out here when that was going on, and there were some some disasters, but those guys never stopped. Think of all the guys that had painted sponsors on their bodies, and they're like, all right, you can't do that anymore. No,
cleaning it up. We could spend hours on companies that start and stop.
Right.
That list is a mile long, and a lot have taken steps. When you look at the little engines that could, and earlier you've brought up right on, we've seen this a lot in the optics brands because the cost of optics coming down in thermals and IR, and a lot of that is becoming big in the industry. I like to compare that to years ago when we were younger. Honda was like the laughing stock of cars. Now people ain't laughing anymore.
And motorcycles too. Yeah.
So now people aren't laughing because they became like the little engine that could. They got better and better and better. And I used to say to people all the time, what I like about Vortex is where they're going. And when people ask me why right on it, I say it's where they're going. It's the direction. But people come to me all the time, and the thing I get back is, John, you know everything. Have all the answers. What prescription would you prescribe to the industry or to the thought leaders of the industry, to the NSSF, the NRA? And my answer always remains the same. The top 3 things that should be at the top of their initiative, outside of the political stuff, because that's a whole separate issue, and we'll get to that. They need to fix how pro shooting is viewed. The sport of pro shooting has been done a disservice by the NRA, NSSF, and all those organizations, because you could tomorrow stream pro shooting events onto one of these platforms and have a pay portal, and people would sign up and pay. The minute you get the score on the screen and create the drama, and I gave the prescription for that, I said, and I'm giving them the idea for free. I said you need to, at each stage, put a confessional, just like the Real World and Road Rules had, where people can do a confessional.
Go in and say it where no one else in the house can see you, but everyone else can.
And you start to add to that drama, because that's where the drama and intrigue comes from before each stage. And then you have the score on the screen to create that heightened, because those matches come down to 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. I've had Max and Doug and JJ in here, and we've talked about that.
That's why I'm glad I didn't make it to the Olympics, man. How do you live? How do you live losing by 0.2 of a point? Like, that's it, man. If I had blinked differently, I'd have won that match.
So the drama's already built in.
Right.
The drama's already built into it. You don't need to heighten the drama in any way. It's already built into it. That's a simple fix. I mean, literally, if you did a $4.99 paywall, you'd have the whole industry, that whole area support itself and pay into it and want to be a part of it. And you'd have
So,
that.
I'm going to cut you off there and go, you know what? $4.99 paywall. We don't need that. You know why? We
Free.
got all kinds of other ways
to monetize
that. So make it a 99-cent paywall, because one, I'm a firm believer in having a vested interest, and when people pay money, they have a vested interest.
Well, the scaling we could spend a whole podcast on.
To scale it,
we could go down a rabbit hole.
You want them to have a little bit of skin in that game, so that they will watch it.
But the next answer I get back is, and I'm going to go through these 3 points. The next thing I get back is, John, it's too many events that the cost would be through the roof. I said, well, then pick 5 and make it like the sprint for the cup, like NASCAR.
Right.
Pick 5 and make a grand prize for the top finisher of those top 5. Just peel off 5 IDPA matches or 5 IPSC matches and make that a whole separate trophy or a separate cup.
People watch golf.
Right, whatever.
People watch bass fishing. Like, I looked at it, I go, man, I like to fish,
make it like
I can't watch somebody fish.
Make it like a skins game. Then the second thing I think that those entities need to take a hard look at and make a vested investment into, and this will cost some money, is the podcasting, streaming, story selling, storytelling. And until you have that, and I think they can build on the bones.
And don't forget the gun wall.
Yeah. and I think they can build on the bones of what Ackerman McQueen had in its genesis and what it was trying to do, because there were some redeeming qualities in that. But until you get to that, and the reason I suggest those avenues is because of the arbitrage of the yield. And whether it's as simple as 12 episodes a year, 20 episodes a year, whatever it is, you have to get there, because you're not doing anyone a service by just posting a picture and no context or anything. And then,
you know, why? That just brings up another question. Why is Cam Edwards not already back on TV and the radio for the NRA? Like, what, you know, you look at stuff like that. I just like that when that whole thing melted down, it was like they said, okay, that's just gone now. Like, you know, when the Titanic sunk, they didn't stop building ships, right?
Well, I think they didn't know how to pick up the pieces, and they just viewed marketing as a non-essential, and that was a mistake. I mean,
but anybody, it could be anybody. It doesn't. It could be anybody. You know, there's another Dana Lash out there. There's another. You know.
Well, we're gonna get to that. We've done a terrible job anointing fresh faces. That's a whole separate conversation we'll get to.
By the way, if anyone's interested, I am available.
Readily available.
I tell everybody, just like everything else, my integrity is for sale, and it's not as expensive as you might think it is.
And here's the third point, and that gets to this. You have to be willing, and this goes to the magazines and the bloggers too. You have to be willing to tell hard-hitting stories. The last time I picked up a rag that actually, like, take SHOT Show being canceled. Whether you think it's good, bad, or indifferent of how it was handled.
Who's taking a stand?
No one.
Nobody.
Zero.
Us.
No one says anything.
Like,
me on an island. I'm like, hey, you know, is anyone
this is bad.
Anyone talking about this? Bueller? Anyone?
Right.
So when I go to pages like the NSSF, and I just pulled it up, and they say these are our current campaigns or programs. This is the disconnect. You have Operation Secure Store, comprehensive joint initiative with ATF to help federal firearms FFLs deter and prevent theft. Okay. Project Child Safe, distributed 37 million gun locks, accompanying education materials nationwide. That's goes on anyway. I mean, that's whatever. Plus one, take someone hunting. Mm-hmm. Fix NICS. Firearms retailers' reliance on NICS to ensure.
By the way, you said plus one?
Yep.
I actually somewhere have a video of me talking about a program we did way back in 2006.
Ancient. With
the United Sportsmen's Youth Foundation. And guess what we called it? Plus one.
Plus one.
Everybody take plus one. Take a kid hunting. Take a kid hunting, right?
Now,
I'm so glad to see it only took over a decade.
18 years.
For somebody to jump on board with that and do what we were trying to do 18 years ago, 18 years ago.
I don't say these things to pick on them. I say it, we need to freshen things up.
Yeah.
Now, people would say, well, what do you want it to say, John? I don't know. Something more current, maybe like, hey, we have all these new gun owners. Why don't we change plus one, take them hunting, to plus one, take them to the range? If you're an experienced shooter or instructor, have you considered, a pathway to receive training, a pathway to receive a day at the range? We partnered with X amount of rangers that would jump out of their skin right now to offer you, training, some form of training.
Isn't that the First Shots program? They got that first. Well, I know Tisma Jewett was doing a lot with that.
Now would be a great time to bring something like that.
Yeah.
If you went to,
if you can find ammo,
if you went to 10 ranges, and I know because I sit in 702 and they were offering free classes.
Yeah.
In the beginning of all this pandemic, they were like, we'll work anything out with anybody that's willing to learn. So literally that's just an initiative someone could work by just banging the phones and saying, hey, can we get one free seat in each class? Or can we, do a contest, or just, you give something like that away, you got my attention.
We used to joke, you talk about free. Free is the most powerful word in marketing.
Yeah.
It literally is. And, we used to joke all the time back when I was working in the advertising world, like the first guy that gets someone to put free sex in a headline is going to just clean
Millions.
up and make millions of dollars. Everybody laughed. I'm like, I know you think it's a joke, but like, if you can figure out a way to get that in and it would make so much money, right? And it's a matter of taking that little bit of risk for that massive reward. Convincing people to do that is difficult. And it's funny because you used analogy, you said a prescription, right? So I have a very dear friend who is actually one of my mentors. I'm a firm believer in everybody having a coach. This guy is my coach. And I go back to him with things, and we spend time together, and we work on me, and we work on my business and my business model. And there are several things that he's very, very adamant about. One is that ideas make you feel good, but only action makes you money. Everybody talks about, yeah, we should do this, yeah, we should do that, but only actually doing it is what makes you money.
Well, I'm going to throw this at you. I had an interesting statement said to me by a head of industry, and this is a very large company. This is an industry head. He said to me, John, because I say the same thing to him. I said, am I missing something? And he said, John, you want to understand marketing? And this goes back to my days at Unilever and other places. He goes, if you present an old idea and maybe change one thing in it, you're safe. If you present a new idea and it fails, you're gone.
You're gone, right?
They
Absolutely.
hate you. And He said that, in a nutshell, is the advertising marketing world.
We don't have pioneers, right? We don't have
In
pioneers.
this
We have
industry,
settlers,
we definitely
but very few pioneers. And I tell you, the other thing that he taught me was that, prevention is cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Cures are expensive, right? And if you look at like the medical world, right, guys, some of the top grossing pharmaceutical products in the world are what? Statin drugs. They lower cholesterol. Man, nobody wants to eat a good diet. Nobody wants to put that steak down and eat the salad. Nobody wants to do the exercise and the work. And you know what? I'm no saint, but I'm better at it. I went from being in tremendous shape to being in really shitty shape. And then I walk in and look at guys like you, I'm like, damn it, I better get really motivated now and go, But there's people that do it, and you can do it, and that keeping in shape is better than getting in shape. But there is a cure. Now, if you know this, but there actually is a weight loss drug now. It's an injectable, and the name is escaping me, but it is literally the key to fat loss. It works in everybody. It also happens to be a drug that works for diabetes, and it's not glucophage, it's not metformin, this is a new one, it's injectable, right? The indication and the use of it for weight loss, the prescription is $1,600 a month, and it's not covered by any insurance.
Yeah.
But think about all of the things that would benefit if someone who is morbidly obese, let's say you're 100 pounds overweight, right? Well, you get that drug, and all of a sudden now you don't have to take blood pressure medication. You don't have to take your statin drugs. You don't have to take, you probably don't have to take your omeprazole and your,
everything.
Correct. You take all of that off, but that one thing could solve it all. But that's the cure. The cure for cancer, the most expensive drug in the world right now, cures a type of pediatric cancer. It's $1 million. $1 million. But guess what? Man, if they come to you, and I know you're not a married guy, but I'm married. I have 4 children, right? I love each one of my children more than anything on earth. I would do whatever it took for my children. And if they came to me and said, your child is going to die unless you come up with $1 million, I don't care if I got to knock on 1 million doors and get $1 from everybody. I'm getting that money, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a cure, right? Cures are expensive. Prevention is cheap. Cures are expensive. So I think we need to do more prevention. And for us, that prevention is the good diet. It's the good marketing. It's the companies that constantly
The
are
little
looking,
things.
the little things that you can do every day and do it. But it's just that fear. It's like, well, we know this works. And I bring it back to what just happened. This terrifying thing that just happened.
Yeah.
And I don't care what your politics are, right? I don't care if you love Trump, hate Trump. I don't care if you know, Alex Jones. Back when they did to Alex Jones, I was like, this should be a wake-up call, people. This is a wake-up call. Look, with the push of a button, this guy's gone. He doesn't exist. He's gone, right? And they just did it to the president of the United States, right?
It's terrifying.
And you look at that, you go, if they can do it to him, what on earth could they do to me? What can they do to your business? What happens? And, you know, I remember when Terry McMillan's business was shut down, his bank said, sorry, we're not clearing any more credit card transactions for you. He was shut down, out of business for several weeks. AR-15, push of a button by GoDaddy.
Is that still gone?
Well, no, it's back up, but GoDaddy just shut them down. No notice, no warning, no nothing. And they all do the same thing. You agreed to if you ever want to do something nefarious, folks, if you really want to get away with something that is at least borderline, if not actually criminal, put it in the terms of conditions of some sort of electronic anything, app, whatever, that you put something that says, by the way, we can wipe out your bank account, and some crazy court somewhere will go, well, you signed this. Remember when the 19-page thing that you were supposed to read everything of a click on so you could get free access to blah, 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 right? All these nefarious things down there. No, it's always the same. You violated. We're not going to tell you what the violation is. We're shutting you down. You have 24 hours, right? When you have a business like that, now, and I don't know, I'm sure everybody knows this, but Brownells owns AR15.com, right? Brownells company does great media stuff. They do a lot of great media creation and things like that. Fortunately, they had the means and the ability to flip that over and get it. But how many people have that?
Not a lot.
How many small-time holster manufacturers, guys that are making, 20 holsters a week and actually have a thriving business, right? What happens when they get shut down? When Facebook just said, oh, by the way, you can't sell. And I just went through them with a former client that called me up and said, hey, I need you. Like, I love calls like that too, because you didn't need me last week, but now all of a sudden you need me because you didn't listen to anything I said for a year. Now all of a sudden you're like, hey, you were right. Well, guess what? Now that's going to come at a little more premium price, right?
Well, that's why I did the post I did a couple days ago. It was the scene out of Blade Runner. Yeah. When he's like, I need you. I need the old Blade Runner.
I need the old Blade Runner.
I need the old Blade Runner.
And
he goes, I was quit when I come in here and I'm quit now, Mm-hmm. But that's an iconic scene because he knows he needs someone who's not exactly conventional to fight an unconventional war.
Right.
Right. And I got a kick out of that. And it's funny. It's always telling who comments on your posts.
Right.
John Wong from Rainier Arms commented on it. And he just put laughing emojis because it's funny because now they got to dust off the old Blade Runners out there. Yeah. And, that's exactly everything you're saying because you're unpacking a lot in these segments. It speaks to what I'm saying about what's listed as initiatives for the NSSF and for the NRA. These are things that should be at the top of their table, Ace. These are things that should be at the foreground, not the background of what is important to them. People don't know where to turn and they don't have the resources. Instead of maybe having lawyers at the ready right now for people who get caught in a shooting, which is a very small number, by the way.
Right.
They should have lawyers at the ready to help fight and add resources to people to help get them, to get their websites back up, to get their businesses up and running. Because I'm going to ask the $1 million question. If I'm an FFL and I make money off of online, maybe I'm Ready Gunner, maybe I'm any one of these.
What happens when they push that button?
When they push that button, who do I call?
Mark my words. I said it today. It's almost 11 a.m. on the 24th of January, West Coast time, right? Mark it today. It's coming. Prepare. It's coming. These are tests. These are like when the two armies are facing one another and they send the probes out. We attack here. We attack there. These are tests, folks. Mark my words. It's coming. The deplatforming of your media is coming. The annihilation of your business is coming. The shutdown of your website is coming. It's all coming. They're coming for us.
The number one thing at the top of the NSSF page should say, are you an FFL being threatened with deplatforming? Click here now.
Yeah, exactly.
Or have you been deplatformed? Click here now. And there should be resources. Not take a friend hunting.
Well, no, because I'm
But
going to disagree with you a little
the
bit there.
extreme.
Right. Because
I'm giving the extreme.
The whole take a friend hunting and take a person hunting has done great things for the hunting industry in this economy. You know, in the COVID, the world of COVID, right? So when you have that opportunity, you need to take full advantage of it. And it just so happened that we had SHOT Show and that initiative was rolled out, and then the world shut down, and the only thing people could do was go outside and do things alone, right? You couldn't buy, and you only know this because one of the companies that I work with for a very long time is a company that makes kayaks and canoes, right? You couldn't find one anywhere. No stores had them, because people were buying. You couldn't buy a bicycle, right?
The reason I take the extreme on that, Ace, is because if I'm an FFL and I'm a mom and pop, and you know how tight the money usually is with those entities, I'm going to the NSSF and I'm saying, why am I paying you?
That's right.
Why am I paying you? You know, if I call there and I say, hey, I just lost my website and I lost my, you know, my online, I was deplatformed and lost my ability to transact is what I'm getting at. And I'm potentially in danger. I received a warning from Instagram, Facebook, whatever.
Right.
You know, what do I do? And you get crickets.
And this is one of those examples. And to my friends at the NSSF, this is not a dig. You guys do a fantastic job. You really do. And you've had a very hard year, and we're there with you. But we've got to, it boils down to, years ago, I asked somebody who is in the organization, I said, you guys are in Newtown, Connecticut. What are you doing there? Like, what are you doing? They're like, well, people have lives. I was like, you got to take a stand, man. You got to take a stand. And when you leave there, you got to say, Weatherby left California. I mean, come on. Like, Weatherby was California, right? California used to be a very gun-friendly state. I have dear friends that live in California that have been there, that lived through the heyday. I have an Emmy-nominated artistic director who's a very dear friend of mine that does consulting and stuff in the industry right now. His name is Ed Laporta. If you're looking for a guy that can really help your business, Ed Laporta does some great stuff, right? He's taken me through the history of guns and the history of outdoors in California, and seen how it was literally hijacked. And the second they got the power, they shut it off. And it was just gone. One day it was there, the next day it was gone. And he said, mark my words, we're seeing the exact same thing right now. And I'll throw a shout out there to Ben Shapiro, who, for some reason, I can't get a hold of anybody there, but they're making this foray into entertainment and the entertainment world, right? That's a great step. Who else is doing that? Why isn't everybody doing that?
Right.
Why isn't the NSSF doing that? Why isn't the NRA doing that? Why don't we have NRA Movies Presents? Why don't we have why are we not doing that? Because it's time. It's long past time to take sides. And don't kid yourself. I've said this forever about, to get political again. The reason Democrats win is because they have a ground game. The reason anti-hunters and anti-gun people win is because they have a ground game. While we're pissing and moaning at each other, while we're bickering about, oh, you shouldn't bait, oh, you should never shoot anything behind a fence, oh, you should never hunt with a dog, oh, you should only use, you shouldn't use crossbows, you should just, while we're all fighting amongst each other, oh, you shouldn't use leg hold traps, oh, you shouldn't use optics on a, you know what?
Right.
Forget about what you should do or shouldn't do. At the end of the day, we're on the same side. And the thing that the other side doesn't do is they don't break rank ever, right? PETA does not want to stop bear hunting with hounds. PETA does not want to stop mountain lion hunting. PETA does not want to stop coyote hunting. They want to stop hunting.
Period.
And they take those wins, right? And it's like when you look at the liberals and the conservatives. A great example. We just had a transition of power. What's the first thing that the liberals went in and did? They went in and they just decimated everything, all kinds of good stuff that was done in the last administration. Why? Because they could, right? contrast that with when the Trump administration came in, and we've got knuckleheads like John McCain fighting, for like, you look at, you go, really? We're going to fight amongst ourselves? Lisa Murkowski, really? You can't get on board? You can't come along? You're part of the party. And it's long past time, and not just in politics, folks. It's long past time in this industry to transition a little bit to something that I am passionate about. We need to know who's on our side. We need to know who's on our side. I was a vocal proponent of boycotting and shutting down. And I don't know if I had a lot to do with it, but I did my damnedest to get the word out why no one should ever buy an article of hunting clothing or sporting goods or anything from Under Armour ever again. To this day, I took everything we owned that was Under Armour, and I didn't throw it away. I didn't burn it because that's wasteful. I gave it away. I donated it to youth hunting programs and stuff so they could do stuff. But what those guys did to the Bomars was incorrigible. It was despicable. And it's something that I actually had people make excuses and say, well, they do other good things. You know what? Past good deeds do not excuse current bad behavior. And it's happening like crazy. Like, I noticed that things are coming back and all that. Did we forget? Was there a mea culpa? Did I miss that? I don't think so. I think I'm pretty informed. I get a lot of different sources that come mostly because I'm one of those guys that I say what I think. I'm like you. We say what we think, and we go, to hell with the consequences. This needs to be said, right? And it doesn't matter if you don't like the truth, it's the truth. And when you have a company that does that, and they have the right to do that, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be able to do that. What I'm saying is they shouldn't do it and have our support. And to this day, I've since that day, never spent another dime on Under Armour anything. My kids were in sports. If they had an Under Armour uniform, I got dispensation, and I paid to have a different one made from a different company that matched everybody else's except that logo, because I will not tolerate that. And it's a long, long past time for this industry to get behind that. There are way too many people in the gun world. There are way too many gun owners that say, but the NRA is this, but they did that. You know what? I can't make excuses for the NRA. They made some mistakes, right? I can't make excuses for this whole debacle that happened with LaPierre and the expenses and all that. If the NRA was a Fortune 500 company, they would have cleaned house, wiped it up, and launched and say, you know what? That's not happening again. We're right back at it. And in this industry, we don't do that. We're beholden to the golden cow. And so many people suckle at the teat of big companies and big organizations in those situations that no one stands up. What happened to the revolutionaries, man? We fight to get political again. We look at the country. We look at what just happened, and people say, well, the Democrats cheated. Look, I don't care what you say. I don't care what people say. There are all kinds of ways to cheat. We know they cheat. People make jokes about dead people voting. We know they vote. If one dead person gets to vote, it's wrong, and it should be found out, and it should be taken care of, right? We know that's going to happen. We knew they were going to cheat. We knew they had the media. And you know what? Shame on the other side for not doing the same thing, because we've become the redcoats. We've become the guys that are standing out there in the field, but we're lined up here and they're hiding behind bushes and shooting at us, right? We glorify the revolutionaries for not fighting that war because it's what got us our independence. And here we stand. We've become the thing that we despise the most. And it's pathetic and agitating. And I can't express my displeasure enough that we don't have fighters out there, man. We need brawlers. We need scrappers. And regardless of what your opinion was on Donald Trump, man, that dude was a scrapper. He fought. I respected that.
Well, again, you leave a lot to unpack there. A ton.
I'm full of a lot of those.
Yeah,
I'm full of a lot of those.
Yeah, I mean, so backing it up for a second, the internal squabbling is something in this industry that runs deep, right? In our industry, for a number of reasons, old beefs die hard. And it's turned it into high school, whether on the hunting side, tactical side. You can dissect that all day. Everybody knows the enemies, right? We always say, like, we become friends because we have the same enemies, and that's stupid. It's childish, right?
Yeah.
And it goes on a lot, and there's a lot of that. But I think the internal squabbling is something that's just going to be a tough thing to get rid of in this industry until people say, look, a time like now is a good time for it to go away because we're all trying to do the same thing. We're all trying to make money. Everybody's trying to make money and everybody's trying to move the ball forward. So now's a great time to remove that veil. The other thing you brought up was where we are, which is a really important one. People need to understand where we are. Like you said, regardless of this, and this, politics, life, everything. I have that argument all the time when people bring up, oh, John, you're not for machine guns, so that makes you not a threeper or a pro 2A. I said, no. You're not understanding where we are in the permitting process and what is required to take those steps. You're not listening to me. You're taking a snippet and forming your own opinion. I am 100% all for everybody having full autos, but here's the path that it needs to go. I'm 100% for national reciprocity, and here's the path for it. I can have my opinion on the path, and I have to base it on because they don't understand, and you do because you've been there. I do because I've been there. When you go to the table, we have to operate in the where we are now. If I have $50 in my pocket, I don't take it and put it on the table and say, we're going to start with all of our money equal on the table. No, it's everybody has the collateral that they already have in their pocket, and that's what makes the first bet so important. So, people need to take a deep understanding of where things are today versus I'm a threeper and everybody should have a tank. Well, I can't unpack that. There's no way to unpack that. I can't roll that back.
Which, by the way, they should, but we got to get there.
And you have to take the first step, and the first step is a baby step. The other thing you bring up is guidance, which is really, really important. The three big things you brought up, guidance being almost the most important. And I've said this on the last podcast with the guys from Guns Out, and I've said this with other industry thought leaders. We crave guidance, okay? But nobody's willing to grab the microphone and fucking say anything. That's part of the problem. You have these huge industry leaders. Where are they?
Hey, who's the best quarterback in the NFL right now today?
Oh, I'd argue I make the case all day long that it's still Tom Brady until somebody dethrones him. He's the GOAT.
All right, first of all, it's Aaron Rodgers, but we can argue about that later because I'm a Packer fan. No, I'm just teasing. There's no question Tom Brady is the guy, right?
He's the GOAT.
Last I checked.
Just beat him.
Tom Brady's on a team that has a coach.
He's been to 17 conference championships.
He's got a guy that leads him.
Yeah.
Even that guy has got a guy that leads him, right? Look at the guys that, and I know that Conor McGregor got smoked last night, but he's still a tremendous fighter, right?
He brings the gate.
He's got a trainer. He's got a coach. Those guys have coaches. They look and they go, right, your coach sees. You need people, you need leaders to step up and lead, and you need the people that are out there to take their advice. And you need people that are going to go out and talk, and they're going to speak out, and they're going to, I tell people all the time, half the opportunities I get these days are because people know that I don't care. I don't care. I'll say it. You need something said and you can't say it, I'll say it.
I'll give you a great example, and I'm going to say something controversial that needs to be said. I'm going to say it in front of the people in the room. I'm going to say it in front of both of them, and they can raise hell. I don't believe we have a shortage of anything right now. I think this is the industry stupidity. And I have on good authority from people inside the industry that this is horseshit. And what they like doing is ramping up the manufacturing and then holding back inventory. I saw a picture the other day of a very large manufacturer on LinkedIn, and I think you know who I'm talking about.
Yes,
and they had shelves stocked a mile high, boxed. And I've talked to other companies. There is ammo.
I can't disagree with you.
There is ammo.
I can tell you
but here's the fucking problem.
Different sources saying the same thing. Have said we're short, but it's not like what you see.
And I have a very large executive of a large. I'll say it. Tom Taylor's supposed to come on. I don't give a fuck. Tom's supposed to come on and talk about this.
Yeah.
There is not a shortage. What there is inventory that's spoken for to meet demand, but at the same time, there's not a shortage. But what happens is all these companies and all these people get a hard on when they see 9 at 80 cents a round. They see this, everything going up 20%. And there's people that
take an industry that has a 4 or 5% margin, and now all of a sudden it's got a 60% margin.
And we don't have the military to supply like we once did.
Right.
So when people say, oh, it's because there's a shortage and there's this horse shit, they're holding back the inventory. And I don't give a fuck what any motherfucker says out there till I walk the facility and see for myself. I don't care. because I'm telling you, they have the inventory and they're playing games with you right now. And they're playing a very dangerous game of chicken and Mexican standoff, because if an ammo tax comes in tomorrow, and this is the systemic risk that they're not understanding, ammo tends to never want to go down. You think they want to make 80 cents a round, or they want to make 25 cents a round?
Yeah, $1.25 a round.
Or $1.25.
They would love it to be $2 every time you pulled the trigger.
If the industry was smart right now, it would get those prices back down and start to facilitate more growth, because what they're doing is deterring new shooters, and they're deterring people to go out from training because of the cost.
8 million new gun purchasers this year, something like that, 7.8 million, right?
And this is something that not enough people are talking about.
But if each of those people buy 2 boxes of ammo, that's 16 million boxes of ammo. That's a lot of ammo.
You don't mean to? No one can sit in this room and tell me that Winchester, Hornady, any of these companies, that all of a sudden, we got a shortage.
I'm somewhat. I think we have
Not
a shortage.
convinced.
No, I think we have a shortage, but I don't think it's as bad as they're playing it to be. I actually talked to an executive at one of the companies. I will not say their name, but he said, "I swear to you," he goes, "we're 24/7. If I could crank out another 5 rounds an hour, I would do whatever it took to get it out, because we've got it." He goes, we're getting it more, we're doing more things, we're putting equipment in closets and doing whatever we can to get it out there. But I think that there's validity to what you say. I think there is some out there. I think some of it's being held back to try, and I don't think it's the diabolical plan. I think it's a side effect of the plan, in that they're afraid that maybe if they get it all out, they might not be able to make it all more. And I look at components. Like I hand load, and fortunately I've got some components, but man, try and find rifle primers right now. Why aren't we getting imported rifle primers from other countries? Like that, it shouldn't be a problem, but it is. And the only thing I can think, and this is my conspiracy theory, I like to think my spider sense is pretty good. And I think that there's pressure. I think there's pressure on some of the foreign companies to not bring ammo into the country, to not bring components into the country, to take some of that burden off the marketplace. And I don't know, I can't say whether it's coming from the industry or if it's coming from politics, but it's one of those things where, man, anytime they can turn the screws to us, they do in politics. And I can't. That's such a great, juicy opportunity. I can't see them not taking advantage of that.
See, there's two ways to make money, and it's a dangerous pendulum that these companies are swinging right now. If you own a restaurant, you either want to turn the tables over a lot, or you're going to charge more for that bottle of wine or that meal.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing in the gun industry. You either charge more for the gun, or you want to turn them over quicker. So it's a very dangerous game.
There's actually 3 ways to make money, right? You can
or steal it.
You can acquire new customers and sell to them.
Mm-hmm.
You can sell more to your existing customers, right? Or you can raise your prices. Those are the only 3 ways to make money in business. You can gain more market share and more business and sell more. You can sell more to the people that normally buy for you or from you, or you can raise your prices. And now a smart business person does all 3.
Right.
But sometimes it's easy to just raise the price. Sometimes it's easier to sell to, it's always easier to sell your existing customers, but other times, you got to go out there, you got to pioneer, you got to prospect. And we did that this year. We really did. We added a lot of shooters.
A tenfold.
Yeah.
Ammo is the popcorn in the movie theater, though.
Right. Absolutely right.
So ammo is the thing you need to turn over. We need it.
Without ammo, these are all just really fancy looking clubs.
Yeah. So you need the ammo. So the reason I harp on the ammunition side of the business is, guys, you got to get it out there. You got to get it out there. Come rain, wind, hail, you got to get it out there. You have to be like the post office. You got to always deliver. You got to get it out there. It should not be as scarce as it is right now. And I'd make the case that there's some artificial movement in that.
Mm.
And there is some scarcity. I'm not disputing that. But the fact that you can't get a pallet to a Cabela's or a Bass Pro and you're like, oh, we can only get 6 cases. It's because they like the idea of selling it at a 20 or 30% markup, and they're playing that game, Ace.
Yeah.
And we all know that they're playing that game to some degree, because why wouldn't you? You know, the only time it comes down in price is when the demand goes down.
I got news for you. If they flooded the shelves and jacked the price up today, it would still sell.
It would still sell.
It would
That's
still
my
sell.
point.
It would all be gone.
That's my point, is get it out there, even if you're still charging a higher price. But what creates that competition?
Look, think of guys like us, right? I mean, I shoot a couple hundred rounds of shotgun loads a week. I'm a big shotgunner. That's when people say boil it down, like, what do you do? That's what I do. That's what I do regularly. It's what I do a lot. I shoot a lot of clays. I shoot a lot of birds, right? But I shoot a lot.
But I know the ranges are starving.
Yeah.
The individual buyer is starving. I had a friend of mine took a young woman shooting, and I said, "Oh, cool, you know." She goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, she's going to get ammo." She bought some ammo. We went and shot. I go, "How much you guys shoot?" He goes, 2 mags. That's all she could afford.
Right.
You know, and that's how dire it is. A new shooter can't get out there and even train, and that's what keeps the pendulum swinging. Is you got to feed the instructors, you got to feed the meter and all things.
You know, I got to get on my soapbox again right now. This is a topic that I'm passionate about. Okay, remember we talked about people being on the same side and being on the right side. We got a lot of people that are shooting guns that aren't what they call traditional shooters. There are a lot of people that hunt that bought guns for hunting. There are a lot of hunters out there that are anti quote assault weapon, that are anti AR-15, they're anti anything. And I've always had a term for those people and their views, and that is they're using their anal optic, right? The anal optic is their butt eye, meaning BUTI, right? They say things like for example, when the dentist shot the lion, right? How many hunters out there went, "Oh, well, yeah, I hunt, but I would never shoot a lion," you know? Look, man, you either believe in the North American conservation model, you either believe in hunting, and you believe in conservation in the ways that is proven to work, because the North American conservation model, 100% success rate everywhere it's been applied. 100%. It has never failed, right? You either believe that or you don't. You can't carve out for political graft or so that your favor goes up in your social circle or the people who don't hunt around you. You know what? I tell people all the time, I'm a hunter. I hunt for me. Now, am I a trophy hunter? There are people that would call me a trophy hunter, but I hunt for me. I shoot what I want to shoot. And if I want to shoot that forkhorn buck because it's the last day of the season and that's the deer that presents stuff and I shoot it, that's what I do. There have been years when I've done that. There have been years where I'm like, you know what? Don't need it. Don't want to do it. I hunt for me. I do what I do because I am a hunter. We are hunters, right? We are blood brothers and blood sisters. We should all be in the same place. But these guys are cutting their throats in another way, and I'll tell you why. Every round fired. The gun boom is a boon for conservation. Every round that goes out of every gun, whether that's an AR-15, an AK-47, a handgun with a magazine that holds more than 10, right? Every round they fire is subject to Pittman-Robertson tax. Every round of ammunition. So we're getting creamed by not doing that. You should be like, I want people out there with fingers on triggers. And that's one thing Larry Potterfield was always very good about. Larry Potterfield looked at everything, every decision he made on, does it put more fingers on triggers? Right. Because that's what's good for the industry. The people, it galls me. It absolutely, I can't tell you how angry and aggravated it makes me, the people out there that vote against the interests of the gun industry. And when you look at it, and you know what? I'm not a leftist, all right? I don't believe those people should lose their jobs. I don't believe they shouldn't work.
Right.
But I think we should know where companies stand. I think we should know whether that's a person at the company with that and when you look at that business decision, if I'm a company that makes both bolt-action rifles and AR-15s, I now might think twice about having that editor review my gun.
Right.
Right? I might think twice about spending my advertising dollars with that magazine unless they give the assignment to somebody else. Right? Because that person's against my interest, and it chaps me. I'm so there was I'm not gonna name names again, but people will figure out who this is. 25-year vice president of sales for a major player in the gun industry,
And
was chairman of the Sportsman for Biden group, and helped elect what is absolutely the most anti-gun, anti-freedom, anti-American administration that we've had in at least the last 50 years, right? And I look at that and I go, we watched it happen and no one said anything. No one did anything, right? And I had a long conversation. And this is no secret.
We've talked about this.
I'm not a big fan of backcountry hunters and anglers for their politics. I'm a fan of their policy, if that makes sense. I think they do good things. I think conservation is good. I think we all should be on that side. And it's something that, again, GOP, if you're paying attention, wake up. Wake up. There's millions of hunters. There are millions of people that recreate on public lands. Your public land message has got to be better because it's not bad. Responsible, sustained use is part of the North American conservation model. Healthy forests are managed forests. Healthy game populations are managed game populations. And healthy natural resources are managed natural resources. But we need to be better about policing our own. And we got to at least call these people out and go, man, I got to tell you right now, I won't be buying a gun or promoting guns or doing anything from that company because it just galls me that they would do that. Because you can say I'm not for, you can say I don't own one. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with you saying, look, I don't own a gun. I don't own an AR-15, right? That's fine. You do you, right? But the millions of people out there that have them, I think the difference between one side of our spectrum and the other side is the millions of people that have them, they're not saying you have to own one or you have to do this. They're saying, you know what? Good for you.
Right.
Good for you. For a long time, I didn't have an AR-15. As a matter of fact, my good friend Dave Dolby, one of the former editors in the industry, Dr. Dave, a great friend of mine, he'll tell you the story. I called him. I get an AR-15, and finally, before the 2008 election, I call him up. I go, man, Dave, I can take every bolt-action rifle, over-under shotgun. You can blindfold me. I can take them apart and put them together. I got this AR-15 apart, and I'll be damned if I can get this thing to function or even get the pieces back in. He had to walk me through it. I'm watching videos. I can't get it, right? I'm not a tactical guy. I'm not that guy, right? It just so happens that's not what I do. Now, I shoot those guns. I love to shoot those guns because I love to shoot, right? I love to shoot tactical handguns. I love to shoot defensive handguns. I love to shoot. If you told me pick one, I would almost always pick my shotgun, right? If you said, what do you want to do? What's your favorite thing to do? I love to go out and shoot my shotgun. That's what I do. But I do all those other things, and I don't say because I love to shoot a shotgun, no one else should do. You don't need anything else. That's as ridiculous as Joe Biden say, get a double-barreled shotgun. What a moronic statement. Anybody that owns a gun that looked at that statement and goes, yeah, that guy makes sense, I just got to shake my head and look at that. And when you have people, vice presidents in the level positions in the industry, owners of companies that don't happen to manufacture those products, but a whole organization. The reason POMA split off from OWAA was that the argument over tactical weapons and guns. Look, we're all, as gun owners, we're on the same side. We should all be on the same side for gun owners. We should all be on the same side for hunters, right? Whether you hunt pheasants or ducks or deer or stone sheep or argali or ibex or lions and leopards and go to Africa. And I'll tell you what the biggest problem is. I look at that stuff and the people that are against that, it's a matter of envy, John. It's envy. People look at that and they say, well, I would never do that. And they can afford to say that because they feel like they could never do that, so there's no loss to them. There's no skin in the game. But the second someone came and said, well, I said, you shouldn't hunt deer. Well, the second someone said that, they'd be like, well, that's what I do. But they're okay giving up the lion. Well, they're okay giving up the elephant, And we got to get past that in this industry. We got to all be on the same side. You are either a hunter or you're not, right? There is no other way. We are all hunters. We should all be on this side of that line.
Well, it's Karen culture embedded in this industry.
Right.
It's Karen culture embedded in this industry. That's what it is. And it goes on at the low levels and it goes on at the high levels.
I almost said the name. I was going to call it somebody else,
No,
but then everyone would know who it is.
Yeah.
So.
The reason I do want to put a disclaimer out there to everybody listening, the reason we say the term, we don't want to name names a lot, is because a lot of times, those people don't have an opportunity to talk here, and we're trying to be gentlemanly about it.
Right. And you know what? I don't want anybody to lose their job.
And
I'm not that guy.
Yeah, and I know Ace, and he
like
knows how I am.
I feel like we can disagree.
I'm more than willing
to
anybody listening. I'm more than willing, and anybody who tunes into the show, to put the head of the NSSF on. They've been on. I'm more than willing to put SCI, any of the entities, NRA. They've been on. I'm more than willing to put them on. So they're more than willing to be heard. When we do name a name, it's someone we know personally, or we know their convictions, and we know where they stand on the issue. So to anybody out there, we're far from pussies about it. We're more than willing to name the names. But I try to.
I'll go out on the branch. I haven't had many cut off, but I've had enough.
Yeah.
Occasionally, you just want to. You don't want to do that to somebody because, aside from, and I've said this before,
we're willing to give them the platform.
Well, it's not even that you're willing to give them the platform. Man, you shouldn't lose your livelihood because you believe something differently than someone else. I don't believe in that either. That, to me, and again, I'm going to be political about it.
Back.
That, to me, that's a liberal mentality. A liberal says, you know what, you should do what I do,
cancel
or
culture.
Screw you. You're done. You're out. And I don't believe in that. I don't believe that. I believe we should. Our founding fathers were big proponents, and they were very adamant about the benefit of vigorous debate. And they got to the best solutions sometimes after days and days of arguing and debating and conceding and moving points. And instead, now we have this identity politics that says, all right.
Keep going. I got to take a leak.
All right, Democrat guy, here we go. You're with the Democrat Party, and what are you going to do? You had better toe the line, because the second you don't, you're out, right? You're out. We cut you off. We're going to run primaries against you. We're going to hurt you. We're going to do everything we can so you don't get a seat at the table anymore. And you know what? That's bull. And that's part of the reason why we don't have, it used to be, Harry Reid had an A rating from the NRA. Harry Reid, A rating, NRA, because he had a decent record on guns. Name a Democrat today that's got that. Name a Democrat that's got an A or an A+ rating, right, from the NRA. They're not out there. They're just not there. And the reason is because they all got to toe the line. We have that. There is no compromise. And it goes back to what we said earlier. The reason that the left wins, the reason anti-hunters win, is because a lot of us are independent thinkers, and we feel like we can get along and agree, and they will take the inch that we give them and concede nothing.
Right.
And over years and years, those inches become feet. The feet become yards. The yards become miles.
Yeah, you never get back what you gave.
You never get back what you give away, and they don't concede. Look at, I'll give you a great example. Hey, we're we talk politics. We get political. I don't think anybody has any question as to where the majority of my politics lie. I'm a little light on some of the GOP policies on land use and things like that. I'm not for the Pebble Mine. I'm totally against that. And if they could show me a way that they could guarantee there wouldn't be a disaster, then you could talk to me. But I don't think they can. And when you can't do that, then no, it's not worth that risk. But when you look at those policies and you go, man, there are things we have to draw the line in the sand.
Right.
And for me, guns, freedom, and the economy, that's my line in the sand. And I just will not step over that, right? But again, I have family that are on the other side of that spectrum. And I'll never forget a member of my family cut me off. They shut off their Facebook to me. They shut off a lot. And they have children, and they and I love these people. They're my family, right? We're Italians, man. Family is everything to us, right? So I had to have a talk, and I was like, listen, I understand that we don't agree politically, right?
But we can still break bread.
But we can still, at the end of the day, you're family, and I love you, and I would step in front of a bullet for you. I hope you know that. And they were actually shocked that I said that, and maybe that's on us. Maybe that's on me. Maybe I don't make that known. I have friends out there that are the other side of the political spectrum from me, but they're dear friends, and I you know, they're like my family, and I would do anything for them. We just disagree on something, and we got to get past that. You know, we have to talk more like that. But there are certain things where we've got to be like, we can't give. We've given this much. We can't give another inch. Like we can't give another assault weapons ban. We just can't do that.
Well, this is important. You know, that gets into the art of the debate, right? Like, I had a conversation with a friend this morning. Some people, you know, Italians learned very early on. Let me put a disclaimer out there. Big disclaimer, because Dr. Dave and I have had this. We can fight. We can have a knockdown, drag-out fist fight in the middle of the living room. But we move on.
Next minute,
we're
good.
Hugging and kissing. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
And you learn that very early on. It's usually either the Jewish side of our family or the Irish side of the family that sometimes can't get over that. And we don't carry it for a long period of time per se. The Irish carry, sorry to my friends in Southie, but they carry their shit around them like they want to be on the cross. Yeah. You know, they want to be martyred.
Yeah.
You know, in the Italian ethos growing up, we love to have a passionate debate, and I think the art of the debate is lost, and there has to be structure. You can disagree, and we can say, hey, we agree to disagree. All right, let's move on. So to everybody out there listening, you grow up with a different mindset when you grow up that way. Hey, let's have the debate. Let's have the fight. Okay, you want to talk about McGuire versus Bonds. You want to talk about Kobe versus Jordan, anything.
Yeah.
We can have the debate.
Yeah.
But you got to move on.
Yeah.
You got to be willing to say, hey, you know, we agree to disagree. You know, I mean, that's been going.
Have you ever cut anybody off in your life? Have you ever shut anybody down?
Yeah, but for different reasons.
No, not for that. Over a political thing.
Mm-mm.
A political or a belief thing. Like I can't think of a single example where now I have cut people off and shut them down, or at least reduced my exposure to them for abusive behavior.
Yeah,
which I
far
think is
different reasons. Whether it's drugs and a family, there's different things.
You know,
there's different things.
But like, just because we have a difference of opinion, like that's a good
everyone's
thing.
got a crazy cousin.
You're right.
That you got to kind of.
I got a dozen.
You
of
put
those.
them in a box. You know, I mean, you got to kind of put them in a box. You know,
where's Johnny?
This one's addicted to heroin. That one's addicted. That's
Johnny won't be at Christmas this year. He's got a little bit of legal trouble.
Jailbird Johnny. So that's a different podcast, really. That's a psychological thing.
Yeah, right.
That goes on. But yeah, in the ethos of how we were raised in many ways, you got to have the debate. You got to have the fight. And listen, I've been to many a dinner as you have, many an event as you have, where the wife or the girlfriend or the cousin leans over and says, hey, just don't get into the gun thing with them. You know, so you stay away from it. And,
you know my wife.
And we're never the one to everybody out there. Most of us in this industry are never the ones to get into it. Like we don't live that way, and there's reasons for that. You know, I always shy away. People always ask me, "What do you do?" or "What did you do?" And I'm always, hesitant because I don't want to bring it into it. I was at a dinner last night where this went on, and somebody says, "Oh, well, you know." And I'm like, I came here because it's hard to say. Like I came here to a company that imported and exported AKs. Instantly, the whole room's like, the whole room looks at the music stops and they're like, what? What did you say? So instantly they think like it's so amazing, right? And I joke all the time.
Except the one person that goes, you're a purveyor of war.
Yeah, like so. Yeah, you kind of. And that's the real reality. Oh, where were you before? Well, we worked on this and we worked on that, and like, oh, okay, and like they start to think things. And you try to dead those assumptions at the door because it's like, no, I'm just a dude. Like, let's just talk. If somebody came up to me and said, I work at Facebook, am I going to instantly be like, oh, you're a quack? It's like you kind of just shy away from it because instantly people.
Hey, man, I've met people that work at Google and those are some smart people.
Yeah.
I tell you, I always love to talk with smarter people. I love to talk with people smarter than me. I love to talk with people that are doctors, people that are like these computer programmers and stuff. Like God bless both my brothers-in-law. They're both computer and tech guys. And man, when they talk about stuff, I try and absorb just a little bit of it. So I have just a little bit more knowledge and do that. But I'm a firm believer, and we could go down this rabbit hole forever. I think one of our biggest problems in America today is in the way we raise boys. And we don't raise boys among men anymore. when I think about my childhood, I don't know what your childhood was like, but my childhood was, I say it was rough. It wasn't rough because we were in poverty or anything. My family was strictly blue collar, and my father was had a construction company. And my mother was a teacher, and we never went hungry. We never had anything, but we certainly weren't wealthy, right? But when I say my upbringing was rough, it meant like when I was a little kid, I had chores, man. I had serious chores. I had to do stuff, and if I didn't do it, I got my hide tanned, But like even on the weekends and stuff, like because my dad was in the construction industry, every day these guys, like when I was a little kid, I just thought when you grew up, you smoked cigarettes and drank beer because that's what every adult male that I came across in the industry, that's what they did.
I always say this: if you grew up right, you essentially were poor, but you didn't know you were poor. Right, your family probably lived somewhat paycheck to paycheck, which is 90% of the population. Yeah, but you didn't know it. Your family did a great job of keeping it from you. They worked hard. Right, the food was on the table, but they struggled.
I'm still mad at my parents because they made it look so damn easy.
Yeah,
I became a parent and I was like, damn. And there's nothing. Tell me it was this hard.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, and that's the comparison I always draw. Now, one of the things that gets in my craw, and you touched on it, is the lack of diversity in the conversation and the willingness to have the conversation with diversity. And by diversity, I mean listen to other opinions, listen to other thoughts, listen to other thought leaders. And I feel like in every conversation that we have inside a marketing room, inside of a company, a manufacturer, it becomes an echo chamber, right? Like I said earlier, present the same idea over and over again. And literally, I've lived through that. I've lived through it. Present the same idea over and over again, and you'll have a job. Yep. Present a different idea and have it fail, or at least in the eyes of the company, have it fail, and you're out of a job.
Be less successful
than they think it should be. Right. And nobody wants to, in our industry, nobody wants to give the idea time to flesh out and see where it goes. You can't even make a decision on something unless you're 18 months in to a year and a half in. Now, there's a lot of great ideas that have come along in the business, and you've been a part of them, and there's a lot of bad ideas that have come along, but you have to have those ideas flow. And I say this all the time. People love to say, well, rising tides raise all ships. I say, yeah, but at the expense of the mortgage because you're going to run out of real estate. Right. So you can have, the same ideas kind of level you up a little bit, but there's no way in God's green hell that the best ideas should be coming from people outside of the infrastructure of the industry. The infrastructure needs to come up now. Yeah. And when the infrastructure comes up, it raises the element that much more. Why, and my hat, he knows how much I love him. My hat's off to him. Why guys like John Lovell are leading the charge in the idea of streaming is fucking beyond me. Yeah. But I'm happy for John. You know what I'm saying? And I'm happy for him. But there should be other people leading these charges. And that's what terrifies me. And that's what scares me is, I look around and I see the resources that a SIG has, a Glock has, and this has, and they've all done great jobs in their own right. But there needs to be leadership now from within.
And you mentioned it, and I just got to tell you, I've had occasion now to use some of those SIG optics products and some of their rangefinders and stuff. Damn, they're impressive.
Yeah, they're coming a long way.
It's really impressive.
And one of the, and I want to give my hat off to Tom for a second. One of the genius things that they do there, as an example, is they fail forward. Yeah. They make a mistake. They do things. I mean, essentially that line, the Romeo was like the only redeeming thing in that line. And they fixed a lot of things along the way. They made adjustments. Now, like their BDX stuff and everything else, it's fucking phenomenal. Yeah. And you'll see them do the same things with a lot of their product lines. They kind of trip forward, fall forward, they're eking, and
you gotta fail, man. How do we get the light bulb?
And they have the resources
had a million
to do
different light bulbs. It didn't work, and then he got one that worked.
Now everybody's gonna always want to present the best version of their argument, of course, as they should. That's what makes a healthy debate. Present the best version of your argument, but you have to realize somebody's gonna just have their opinion. And you have to allow for that opinion.
We call those people Democrat. No, I'm just teasing.
No, so when you're sitting in the room, even in a marketing room, and this is what I want to get to, a lot of people are very scared to present. And we've had this bubbling over of, advertisers, which led to, leadership in marketing becoming the ad buyer / the blog guy / as it's kind of evolved. Now you're seeing some people in pockets with progressive mindsets rise up. And I've said it many times. you have to allow those people to at least be heard in the room. Like the 12-year-old Timmy that's managing your Instagram, which I always get a kick out of. I get the biggest kick out of this. They take the largest audience and they say, this is how literally how they introduce it in a room, and you've been in the room. I say, I'll sit in the room and I'll say, okay, you know, when I'm doing
who does your social
media?
Who
does your social? And they'll say, oh, my nephew Phil does it. I said, so your largest audience, your largest outreach is managed by the kid you kind of look at like the dunce in the room.
Right.
And you pay him the least.
And he might be a smart kid, but
he's probably the smartest guy in the room.
Right, yeah.
Actually. But I'm saying how they view him.
Right.
Oh, it's my nephew. Let's get him.
Yeah.
What do you do? Well, that's like almost what I want to say. Now, what do you do?
Right.
And that's where I lose gigs.
He handles that for me. I'm like, really?
So what do you do? Oh, well, we do the email. Okay.
Yeah.
But then they outsource it to someone else who writes it, as they should. But I'm still sitting there saying, what do you do? So when I put plans together for companies, a lot of times I'm putting them together within the context of the resources that they have available and what they're willing to do. And the thing they hate the most is they say, we have everything. The world's available to you. You know, because we've lived through this.
Yeah.
You whatever you want. Yeah. What's my budget? Crickets.
Right. Right.
Well, this is what I think we should do.
My favorite one, the budget for the year is already set.
Yeah.
Like, really?
And
your budget, it's January, and like your whole budget for the year, the biggest show of the year, you come to the biggest show of the year with no budget for new ideas at the place where everyone's getting together.
Well,
I mean, I realize.
Well, they don't want you to talk to other marketing departments, which is a comical one,
right? But you know, they're like when they get there, when they say that, I go, and a lot of it's just, we all know a lot of it's BS, because let's face it, at heart, I'm a salesperson. I've sold a lot of things.
Horseshit.
And they go, oh, the budget's full. I'm like, no, remember who you're talking to me now. Like, I realize
it's like exhausting.
I'm just looking for options, and all I want to know is if there's options available. I don't care if it's $10 or $10,000 or $10 million. There's something if an option or an opportunity presents itself. Well, of course. Well, okay. Now we're talking. Now we have a different conversation, right? But when you look at some of the planning, it just goes back to the vicious circle where people, they get right up to the edge. You know, it's like the first time you jump off the cliff into the water, man, they get right to the edge and they look down, they get those little butterflies in their stomach, and 90% of them take a step back and go, you know what? We'll try this next summer.
Well, yeah. Well, there's a point I want to get to in that with you, because I've literally had champions of industry in this room and on this show and had come here and pitch me jobs. And I just had a very large one come here and pitch something to me. And I said, no, because you're going to fire me in 6 months and you're going to bring in another guy. And I said, you couldn't pay me enough to move to fucking Kalamazoo, wherever. I'm in Vegas and people come to me. Fuck that.
Right.
I'm not doing that. I'm not playing that game with you.
And you got to try not. The other thing is, I was talking about, please don't.
I don't want to be a part
of.
Take
this the wrong way, but I can't. For what it would take to get me to just be with you, I could help you get a couple of really good people and still have a great experience and a budget and still work.
I literally said to a very large client, I said, I'm at the point in my career where I don't want to go in and fight. I'm tired of battling.
Right.
When you're ready, call me.
I'll never forget, I sat down with, and I don't want to say the company, but I sat down with the company. I went in and I said, look, I was a referral. You called me. I think you know everything I'm about. You know what I do, but there's something you got to know. I'm like the Zulu, warrior of the, I'm like, it's time. When it's time to go, we go to bloody the spears, man. We're not playing nice. We're not doing anything. If you want to win, then we go to war and we win. When all the other tribes of Africa were sitting there hurling spears at each other, man, King Shaka said, we're going to run right underneath those spears. We're going to get up close and dirty, and we're going to kill them all, right? That's what we do.
I'm not always right. Far from it. There's a lot of failure in this room. A lot.
But that's good. That's why you succeed.
But I look back at companies I worked with that I made suggestions, and they would have been so relevant, so forward in COVID. It's fucking disgusting. And it really aggravates me because of the success I want them to have.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I want them to be successful.
I want this for you. I want
it for you more than you want it. Yeah. I want it for you more than you want it. So I want to ask you, because I want to give people nuggets. company comes to you and says, Ace, like I did a LinkedIn on this the other day. They say, what are the things we should be doing right now in COVID? Don't give away the whole formula, because I know,
I say sign this piece of paper that pays me a lot of money, and I'll tell you that I'll give you the keys to the kingdom.
Right. Give them the 1,000-foot 3 things they need to be looking at.
John, I'll never forget, I sat down with a company one time, and they called me, and they were an accessories company. And as part of the, quote, interview process, they wanted me to write a business plan for them. I looked right at him. I was like, oh, I'm sorry. I think you've made a grave mistake. Like, what do you mean? I go, I start at
this,
this X amount to do a business plan.
Sure.
Nobody gets it for free. Now, you want me to tell you the 10,000-foot view? We can look at a 10,000-foot view, but I've got things that I know and connections and things like that, and you're not getting any of them because that's my value. And here's what I'll pledge to you. My value will be greater than my cost to you. It always is. If it ever isn't, then we need to have a conversation. And we can get through that. And I've gotten through that with companies. But I've also had companies that said, hey, we expected this. I'm like, you know what? I expected that too. It kind of didn't work out that way. But we still got this. And you have to understand it's a huge win. I'm a big believer that any marketing or advertising or things that you do, anything that does break even or better is a win, right? And anything that makes a lot of money is a giant win.
If it makes money, it makes sense.
If it makes money, it makes sense. And a lot of times if it breaks even, it makes sense, because you got to think of the peripheral value you get, right, from that. Let's say you do a big ad campaign, you go, we spent 50 grand and we can trace back 52,000 in revenue. Is it really worth it for $2,000? Well, think of what you got for that. Think about the other way. What if it cost you 50 grand and you got 5?
I'll never forget this, Ace. I worked in a restaurant like most Italian kids growing up and did a little of everything. And I had a cousin who was the chef, and he looked at a waitress one time when they said they want their food. He goes, this is exactly what he said, and I think about this with marketing. He said, we do good food fast here, not fast food.
Yeah.
So a lot of companies, they want, what's my ROI is almost the famous quote.
90% of the time when an ad doesn't work, it's the fault of the client, and you can take that to the bank.
I always say, your ROI is 0.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 0. And they say, well, what do you mean 0? I say, well, you're already looking at it through the wrong lens, right? So you look at there's always a cost of acquisition of a client, okay, or a customer. And then it's turning the customer into a client. And a lot of times I'll say, what's your process?
They have a myopic view.
They have a myopic view.
They look too short. They go, well, he buys a widget, right? And I'm like, yeah, but here's the thing. You sell more than widgets. You sell widgets and gadgets and gizmos. And now I sound like the what do you call it? The Little Mermaid. But you sell all those things. We don't want to sell him a widget. We want to sell him one of everything over 10 years, so that he's not a transactional client worth a couple $100 to you. So he's a lifetime client worth 10 grand. Knowing that guy's going to give you 10 grand or 20 grand or 50 grand over the scope of your relationship. Now, how much are you willing to spend to get that guy? And so many companies take that, they play the short game. They go, well, he didn't buy this, or we didn't make all this.
Because the problem is they watch a Grant Cardone special. Right. They watch some Grant Cardone special, right? Yeah. Where it's like, buy a $2,000 seat in my thing. And I'm not, believe me, I'm not knocking.
No, he's got a lot of great advice. Yeah. He's got a lot of stuff. A lot of good stuff.
I'm not knocking what's in the cannoli. I'm knocking what you see, right? It's like when Gary Vee says, just leave your house.
Right.
Just leave your house. Just leave your mother.
Leave your mom and dad. Go on your own.
Yeah, go on your own. You're not
somebody else sells.
What you're seeing is C. You're not seeing A through B.
Yeah.
You're seeing C. And I'm not saying that they're leaving that by the wayside. You're just not listening to the whole body of their work.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to listen to the body of the work. That's why a lot of times when companies approach me and they say, John, we want a plan. That's why I'll sit in meetings, and Dr. Davis see me do this. I'll say, what's the plan? Because at the point of hire, when you're hired, you should say, here's the plan, Ace. Right. This is what I'm thinking we can do based on the resources given.
We're going on a trip.
Right.
Here's the map.
Here's the map.
Right.
Now we're going to make changes. We're going to augment it. But I said this to many people I've worked for and with. I say, given the resources we're given, this is the best presentation I can give you. If those resources change, I'll make changes. But that's where the Mexican standoff comes in with budget, resources, everything else. You can't say to me, well, the budget's unlimited. That makes no sense to me. If I don't have the resources or I don't have them in hand, I can't move and adjust and make those adjustments and pivot. I've
taken clients like that. I said, look, what is it about it? What is it about it that makes it uncomfortable? And they go, well, it just seems like a lot of money. I'm like, I'll tell you what, the first 2 months, I'll do it for half. And they look at me and I go, that's how confident I am that this is what you need. The first 2 months, I'll do it for half. And then after that, I don't want any argument about it. I just don't want, if it's a matter of you're afraid to shell out the money, great. We can work with that. I can work with that. But we need to get past that. You need to understand that this works. That when I look back and I can show you client X and client Y and client Z that had the same issues that you did, the same fears, the same apprehension, that jumped in and went crazy, and I use that example all the time. I point at Right On all the time and I go, everybody laughed at them. They laughed at those guys.
You and I get to the same place, but
they're going to win. They're going to beat everybody. You know why? Because they try everything.
You and I get to the same place, but we get in different cars, because a lot of times what I end up presenting to them is a scaled down version. I say, I'll make the plan for you and I'll give it to you, but I'm going to charge you X. And X is a really high number, at least in my standards, is a high number. And they say, well, what do we do after? I'm like, well, I'll sell you the plan. You can go do whatever you want with it. You can go hire Ace, hire Dave. You want the Blazer? Hire Ace. You want that? Go hire someone else. But I'm not going to go down in the trenches without a guarantee or some type of long-term, 6-month or 12-month deal, because I'm the guy who's coming. You talk about going in there and being, the guy who's going to throw things around. I'm the guy who's going to go in there with a fucking flamethrower. Yeah. Because, and I've had, I'm not going to say who, because they still sponsor the show, but I've had this conversation with a manufacturer that even works with the show. I say, listen, I'll advise you from afar. You get all the kudos. You get all the love. You get everything. I'll tell you, I'll get you the shooters. I'll get you this. I'll get you that.
Knowledge is power.
I'll get you everybody. Like you said, the connections. I'll give you the whole thing. Give you the keys to the kingdom. And I'll charge you X. But I'm not going to come in the building because I'm going to go through and say, you're useless, you're useless, you're useless. Yeah. And I'm going to reclaim all that money for you. And that scares them. Well, we don't want people to lose their jobs and this and that. I say, but I can't have people in there that are pure cancer.
See, but I try and and I get it. I totally get it. There are people that are cancer.
We're just different. We get to the same place.
But when I go in there, I go, you know what? What if we repurpose? And I equate it to, when you have a certain space, all right, you run a room on the floor. Well, geez, the ceiling in here is 30 feet high.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe we could build some shelves and change things. Maybe that person, and this is another thing, when I'll go back to that book, Good to Great, there's a lot of people on the bus, right? A lot of people on that bus are just in a wrong seat. And I have seen people struggling in positions that just weren't quite right for them, that then they move them to the right position, and those people do tremendous things.
The problem, what we're getting at, we're both getting to the same thing. The problem in marketing is everybody wants to work in marketing. Everybody in the building has a great marketing
plan.
It's flashy. They're like,
hot,
so I used to always have an edict. I used to stand on the floor with everybody, the machine shop, because I've been in the big seat. Yeah. And I say, anytime anybody wants to come upstairs and sell guns, come on up.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. Take a chance at the phones. But if you want to stay down here and push a button for $17.95 an hour, you can stay down here and push a button. But don't judge them because maybe one day they're running around with Nerf guns, they're burning off some steam, whatever. That's sales. Sales is, I will tell everybody this, sales is a fucking wacky business. It really is. It always will be, because you're getting no 10 times a day, 20 times a day, 100. If you're a good salesman, you hear no 150 times a day.
You love no.
Yeah.
I love no.
Maybe 10, 15% of the time you get a yes out of 200 calls. He's called Project 200 every day, 200 dials. Yeah. I used to say 200 dials every day. How are you? Hang up. Oh, fuck. Next one. Yeah. So those guys got to blow steam off. That's a different animal. In marketing, for whatever reason, everybody thinks they can market better. I always say, come on up. Once that red light goes on, good luck.
John, we talked earlier. You mentioned the NFL. And I use this analogy a lot with my clients. I use the analogy of today's NFL versus the NFL of the 20s and 30s, right? The NFL of the 20s and 30s and 40s, right? Those guys all had full-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
The Packers, they were a meat packing plant. They were meat packers. They packed stuff. You know, they had jobs. The
Jim Brown used to haul ice and
right,
wrestle.
yeah, all I do right. They do all this stuff. They had other jobs that they needed to do just to make ends meet, right? And they played a lot for the love of the game. And the NFL wasn't really that profitable of an endeavor. Today, they pay some dude several $1 million a year. Here's the other thing. The quarterback was also the punter. He might also be the kicker, right? They all played on both a lot of them played both sides of the ball. They all went on the kickoff, and that, like, right now they have guys they pay millions of dollars a year just to kick. And why? Why do they pay somebody like Adam Vinatieri, right? Why do they pay him millions of dollars? Because, man, when the pressure's on, when there's 4 seconds left on the clock and they're at the 30-yard line, they know they put that dude out there and he puts that ball through the uprights, and that equals multiples of millions of dollars, because now they go to the playoffs, or now they go to the Super Bowl, or now, and the licensing fees and all that. Like, so they've evolved to that, right? So now we have there are guys that are only in on certain plays. There is a guy that they pay, he's a long snapper. He plays how many plays a game? 4, 8, right? That's all he does. They pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because that's what that dude does. And it's so important that he does that he's worth it, because a mistake there can be millions in cost.
The problem is,
which would you rather be a part of? The NFL of today, or the NFL of the 40s?
In our industry, it's flooded with a lot of influencers and ambassadors that convince companies that they're marketing directors, and it waters down the product in the end.
Having a huge audience does not a marketer make you. It makes you an influencer. And don't kid yourself. Influencers can make you a lot of money, but there's that break point where it gets to a point where people just laugh and they go, yeah, that dude, like, everybody knows that the only reason he's talking about that is because they're paying him, $50,000 to talk about it. Everybody knows
that's why the
real.
Companies need to take back ownership of how they create media. When they take back ownership of it, and they start to create their own stuff in-house, and they start to develop their own in-house plan, they're going to be able to control the media, and then it'll be an honor to be a part of it. Like, Fox News does not need influencers.
Correct.
Fox News does not need ambassadors.
They are influencers.
They are an influencer as an entity, but they don't get there without the Sean Hannity show.
That's true.
They don't get there without the Tucker Carlson show.
That's true.
So when you want to build in and you want to create that structure, you have to level up.
You got a couple heavy lifters, and everyone else. And again, don't kid yourself. Cavuto's an important guy. Chris Wallace, who I'm really not a fan of at all, an important guy over there. Like, they fill a niche. They fill the needs right there. But you're right. Hannity carries them.
You have
Tucker carries them.
And like I said, you level up at the cost, at the mortgage of the land. And there is something to be said about rising tides raising all ships. But you have to balance that. You have to have a balancing act. And I struggle, and my hope is that we get back to that place where companies are willing to evolve, and they're willing to sit down at the table, have those conversations, and they're willing to start to build out true marketing and true branding. And just up until even recently, we'd sit with companies and they don't know the difference between marketing, branding, advertising, and sales. They think it's all one thing.
It's all one thing.
It's all one thing. That's the first conversation is, okay, you'd go into the marketing department and they'd say, well, how many guns did that sell me? We're not the sales arm.
Yeah.
Like I tell people all the time, even with sponsors, my job's to get you to click on the link down below and get people to visit the site. Whether or not they want to buy is another story. Having a great sponsor understands that. I'm not here. I can say all day long, hey, go buy a box of Blackwater ammunition, or go buy a Volquartsen rifle.
Yeah.
Click the link below. I can't sell it for you too.
Right.
It's not the same.
Oh, I could. Don't get me wrong. I could sell all of it. I could sell any of this stuff on this table. But then that's what I got to focus on. That's what I
stand by it.
Right.
I stand by it. That's a different.
No, but the
animal.
Sale is different than just the influence of it. The sale of is like when I'm talking to a buyer, because I do that. I do brokerage sales. I do commission sales for things, and we talk and we go back and forth, and then I put my sales hat on. But my sales hat, most people that are in sales, I've always said I was always successful at sales because I was a good marketer.
Mm-hmm.
Because I knew how to get the word out and do it. And take this one to the bank. This is another pearl of wisdom, the 10,000-foot view. The entire goal of marketing and your marketing program is to make the salesperson superfluous. That salesperson is still very valuable. And like I tell people all the time, you don't want, like when I use that football analogy, imagine like the quarterback used to also have to punt and do everything different. Man, the quarterback, he's a valuable asset. You want him throwing the ball and making those on-field decisions as many times as you can. When you have salespeople, you do not want your top salespeople prospecting at all. Not at all. Everyone says, no, they should do it. No, you do not want. If a company is doing it right, they want their marketing program and lesser level people, maybe people training to be sales and things like that. They want those people teeing up so that guy
pushing
all he does,
funneling them,
is go in and talk with. You want me, right? If you hire me, you don't want me making phone calls to your dealers. You want me going on appointments with your dealers. You want me sitting down. You want me sitting down with the people that you want your product to as many times as you possibly can. And think about like a doctor in a hospital, right? The surgeon doesn't go in and scrub the room. He doesn't set up the tools. He goes in there when it's time, when that patient is under and all ready to go. He comes in, does the procedure. He literally goes from right there to another room, takes his gloves off, washes again, and walks into the operatory next door. He does that same thing. You know why? Because that dude is the best in the world at what he does, and that's what makes you money the whole time.
I'm not as smart as you to create that conversation. What I say is Coca-Cola doesn't go to the Bears and say, what's your ROI?
Right. Very true. Very true.
That's a campaign.
Right.
And when they build a campaign, okay, or they build a narrative, Star Wars doesn't exist to pump out movies. They exist to pump out toys.
Correct.
Okay? They will tell you all day long, the reason the sequel trilogy sucked is they didn't sell a lot of toys.
Yeah.
They're not
Ray Kroc didn't make money selling hamburgers. He made it selling real estate.
Real estate.
Yep.
So when you look at these things, people don't understand what one drives the other. Okay, the speed. When you start to look at turnover, you're looking at things like packaging in a warehouse. You're looking at your operations. You're looking at your process.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the other that whole process is where a lot of them fail because they get one guy and they go and they say, okay, call all these guys, settle up and do it. When what they should be doing is like, look, we got these team of 4 young people who are ambitious and all that. Want this guy to come in, show them how to make the phone calls, how to get the people ready and stuff. And those guys, they get all the stuff ready and they put it in front of these guys. You know, one of my favorite shows. Do you watch Mad Men or have you watched Mad Men? Man, Don Draper, he's the closer, right? Everyone else did everything else. Don Draper wasn't on the phone. He wasn't calling. Like when they needed something, they go to Don. And what did he do? He's the closer. He comes in, he does the pitch, he talks with the client, and they walk out, they sign the deal. Everybody's happy and everybody's rich, right?
The breakdown in our industry is it comes from a lot of times the implementation of the plan and carrying the plan out. That's the breakdown. You know, when we highlight positive stories like we talked about Brady Spieth at Right On, and hats off to them, is the willingness to try these different avenues and then stick with the ones that work. The problem is you run into a lack of stick-to-itiveness in a lot of these brands to stick to their guns. And when you
we'll try it. And like 3 weeks later, we got to move to the next thing.
You know. But when you look at like Vortex being a shining example, we'll pick on them for a second. They've had podcasts for a long time. They've had streaming for a long time. They've tried a lot of different things with their YouTube. Yeah. Good marketers. Their team sticks to areas. And when you look at COVID, you don't see a drop-off.
And they've made missteps.
And they've made a ton of missteps.
They've made a ton of missteps. The truth isn't, and sorry guys, like I've done some great projects with them only recently. But man, when they first hit the market, their products weren't that great.
No, they were the Hyundai.
Yeah, they were smart. But now, you know, it's funny you mentioned Hyundai, right? You look at Hyundai and Kia, and now one of the top luxury cars on the market today is that Genesis G90.
It's failing forward, and a lot of these companies have this start and stop mentality. And then, like I always say, so you've heard me say it 100 times, all marketing companies hit rock bottom when they start doing mag dumps in a desert. That's their sole marketing plan. Let's go out to the desert and
we're going to get a girl in a bikini.
We're going to get it going.
She's going to take this gun.
This is going to make us.
Mag dump.
I always used to say it to any boss I've had, I am not going to bet my livelihood on mag dumps in a desert. I'm sorry. Yeah. Do I think that has a place? I know I've made it a punchline of this show, but everything has a place. Let me be clear. Having a quarterly shoot to get B-roll or to get media or to get photos, and I know every insider listening to this knows exactly what I'm talking about. They all have a place.
Yeah.
But they can't be the bedrock, the foundation of your marketing plan. Okay? The foundation of your marketing plan should be to funnel potential sales, leads, everything up to that department to create a program. Okay? And lead to that. Customer acquisition is the key. I buy a Coke because I want to have a Coke and a smile.
That's right.
Okay? I enjoy it.
No, you buy a Coke because Coke has the best marketing. That's why you buy a Coke.
Okay?
Because I don't care who you are. Coke is good. Pepsi is good. Like it's like beer. When you're talking beer, Coors, Bud, Miller, whatever. Why is Bud the king of beers? Because they do the best marketing.
Eyeballs on.
Eyeballs on, right?
Eyeballs on.
Yeah.
And the problem we run into is the start and stop. If you want to implement a good strategy, it has to be for the long term. We can debate all what long term looks like. I always say you can't even judge anything until you're 18 months in. You can't even look at it and judge it. Because let me give you an example. If I was going to, I'd give
zoom. I tell everybody it's the zoom mentality.
It's good food, faster, fast food.
Yeah.
You want microwave marketing? Okay, let's put mag dumps in a desert in.
Yeah.
We'll microwave it a little bit. We'll get some pretty people, and say pretty girls, pretty people out there, and put them out in front. Okay. But you have to have a long-term strategy. So many people come in and they're given the keys to the kingdom because they're an Instagram photographer. Oh, they're going to take us over. Or they're just a creator. They all go hand in hand.
Well, and I always ask this question too: is who have you overlooked along the way? And I want to tell a quick story.
Yeah.
All right. So I won't relate the company, but there was a guy I was working with a company, and I found a guy, and I can talk about him because unfortunately he tragically passed away. But this was a good dude. This dude was a good dude. His name was John Boersma, and John was talented. Man, this guy had he's one of those guys where you look at him and you think to yourself, I wonder what this guy has to say, because you can tell there's a little bit there, and I no disrespect to John, but he's not a pretty boy. He's a veteran. He was just a good dude. He had passion. The thing that really drew me to him when I first met him was the dude was passionate about things. And man, I think passion is a key to success in anything, right? So it comes out that, what John does is he makes videos. He makes that's how he made his living. He made little video vignettes and all that. And when he showed me some of his work, I looked like, holy crap, John. I know companies that do this, that charge buku dollars for something like this. You're talking $250,000, and it's not this good.
Right.
Talented. And this guy was just so passionate and so happy to be in the outdoor industry. It was his dream. That he had all this talent. And you know what? There was a smart company that looked at him. There was a smart company that went, holy crap. And that was a great decision, right? How many companies don't even look for those guys? How many companies aren't looking for the next nobody, the guys that come out of nowhere, right? If there's anything that the world tells us about marketing and about the world in general, look at all these shows, the Voice, the X Factor, right? These are Joe and Sue and Jenny average. They're nobody. They're waiters. They're truck drivers. There was one dude he drove a garbage truck. He didn't have any teeth. I love that episode. I showed that episode to my kids. I'm like, look at this guy.
Right.
Look at this guy. He's a hard worker. He provides for his family. He's proud of his kids. And they're like, why are you here? He goes, man, I want my family to be proud of me, right? And then this dude opens his mouth and sings, and you're like, oh my God. Susan Boyle. They stepped out, and the judges are kind of looking at each other. The audience is kind of looking at each other. And she opens her mouth, and the most beautiful music came out. And you look there, you go, how many companies are constantly on a hunt for that? Nobody.
None.
Nobody in this industry is doing that. If there are, they're not talking about it, and it's very few, right? They're all going, all right, who's the top Instagram guy? Who's the top influencer out there? We got to go after that dude, And now there's agencies that represent influencers and all that. And like, I don't care who you are. If you have a big audience and if you use that audience well, you will have success. But it's not the only path.
Right.
And there are a lot of paths. Like, you want to be broad and deep. Okay. And the faster you can get deeper, the more stay power your brand and your company will have. And I keep circling back, and you're welcome for all the free press, Brady. But like, that's what Right On did. They went broad and they went deep, and they made the decisions. They jumped. They went, you know what? Yes. You know what? Yes. They didn't say no. They didn't say, I don't know. They went, yeah, we're going to try it. You know what? We got the money. We're going to try it. And that's what works, right? That's why they are crushing companies that have a bigger company, a bigger marketing budget, and everybody would say light years head start, right? Those guys, they're not running. They didn't realize the race was even on. And that's why they came and they made that quantum leap forward. And they're not the only ones. There are other companies that do that. The guys at GPO doing great things, right? They're making great products. The optics industry should be an example to every other company in this industry that, man, there's a lot of room and there's a lot of potential for success. But you can't just say, well, we have a great product. Everybody's got a great product now. That doesn't do it. And I think part of the detriment, part of the challenge that a lot of companies come from is that, Johnny makes a product. It's a good product. And he starts to have some success. He goes to some shows. He has some sales. He's got some money. And then Johnny brings Billy in because Billy's his best bud, and Johnny wants to work with Billy. And he makes Billy, who was a beer truck driver up until this week, he makes him his director of marketing,
There's a lot of nice guy hires because he's a nice guy.
Well, he's a nice guy, and he's my buddy, and I like him, and I want to do that. And that's not to say those guys can't do a good job. Don't get me wrong. But you look at that, and then the problem with that is that guy knows he's outclassed, right? Let me tell you, and
it becomes survival.
John, I was a fighter for a long time. I was pretty good. At my sport, I competed at an elite level. But man, if I got in the octagon with anybody today that was of any and looked across the ring, you don't think I know immediately that I am way outclassed by that guy? Like, you just know it in your soul, it, right?
Well,
and it changes the way you behave. When you are so intimidated by your opponent, which if you're gonna equate it to a fight, when you're so intimidated, you have no prayer of winning. You have to be confident in what you do, and people that are good, people that know what they're doing, they are confident in what they do, and that confidence breeds two things. It breeds criticism and resentment, or three things: criticism, resentment, and fear, right? And that's what happens. That they're afraid to bring that guy in. They're afraid because they're like, well, what if his ideas are better than mine? Then what happens to me?
Story of a lot of,
man, I love my job. And again, it's no disrespect to those guys. They might be great people. They might be doing a good job. And it doesn't mean they can't become even better. Man, I learn every day. I am not afraid to tell people that I am good at what I do. Right? It's what I do. I do it because I'm good at it. Right? And this isn't something where I woke up one day and I could sell. And to digress a little bit, and not to brag or boast, but man, I won sales awards and top sales production for the biggest companies in the world. Multi-billion-dollar corporations. Number one guy. There's 3,400 of us. The one, my name at the top of the list. A Fortune 20 advertising and marketing company, inside of 9 months went from 0, number two, right? Guess what kind of threat I posed to those guys, the old dogs in that company? They're like, what's this guy? I went into the boss and I said, hey, I need a promotion. What makes you think you deserve a promotion? That usually takes years. I'm like, because I'm carrying the load of what the level demands. And my customers, they're not going to go with anybody else. They want me. So you know what? I'm an account executive now because I have the assignment now, man. I got $1 million. Like, these are my clients. So, like, you know what? Thankfully, that manager, that division manager, he was a smart dude.
Right.
He's like, you know what? You're right. And there was a lot of resentment in that room when all of a sudden next week they all sat down for their meeting, and there I was. So, like, what's he doing here? He's only been here 9 months. It's like, yeah, well, in 9 months, that dude has surpassed some of you, you know? Well, but instead of going, hey,
We're happy to have you.
What are you doing? Or we're happy to have you. It was all of a sudden big threat in the room. And I was like, look, I don't need any of your clients. I don't need any of your jobs. I need anything from any of you. There's plenty out there. We can all be successful.
I don't want to go down a rabbit hole because we're coming up on 2 hours, but I want to share an example of what you're talking about to tie it in. I watched a special on YouTube the other day on the Seawolf.
Oh yeah.
The actual guy.
Yeah.
And I was blown away at this might be a Navy thing. So the Seawolf, I was blown away. It was an actual. Well, number one, I was blown away that it was an actual human being. Yeah. So I got myself a history free history lesson. But he was taking down French warships during the Napoleonic Wars like crazy in a very small vessel. In a, I believe am I saying it right? Schooner?
Schooner, yeah.
Schooner. In a schooner. Like 30, 40 warships. But he was a rebel. He was he would spit in the face of the leadership, because back then the British Navy was run by lords and aristocrats, and not progressive.
And he was a scrapper.
Yeah. He was a Scottish guy, Cochrane, I believe the name was. Something. Look it up. Correct me. I need a Navy guy to correct me. Got a Navy guy in the room. Got to be corrected. So I believe it's Cochrane or something. Just yell it out. But I want to get it right. But he was not of that ilk. He was a commoner.
Yeah.
And he was actually elected to the House of Commons. But he wormed his way up to be in charge. And he eventually went to Chile and made a huge name for himself with the Chilean Navy. But he would always like try to explain that they're not doing it right.
Yeah.
That was at the crust of his thing to the lordship. But he had such an uphill battle because of the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
And that's part of the struggle. And that's part, you're always going up against the aristocracy. And back then it was bad in British culture. It was really bad. If you weren't born into it, you had no chance. So he had to win it on the street, so to speak. So he would go out there and go right at them, and he would win major battles, major battles. Look him up. Cochrane? Yeah. Let me see if I can.
Well, you know what's funny is because you look at stuff like that, and I look at the people that are jealous of like these guys that make $400 million.
What do we got? We got it? Thomas Cochrane. So I'm not that crazy. Thomas Cochrane was the actual Seawolf. And I caught myself watching this because on YouTube you go down a fucking rabbit hole.
Oh, yeah. For hours.
So I caught myself watching this. It's like a 3-hour thing, and it's like his strategy and everything. And that's another podcast. But it was like his whole strategy. But I think back to his uphill battle with the aristocracy, and I liken it to this business, and I drew a lot of parallels to it, because you have a lot of people that get hired because they're nice guys, because they're Phil's cousin, they're the father. I've literally walked into companies where it's like, yeah, that's my ex-wife's father-in-law, and that's the former brother-in-law, and this is my ex-wife, and she runs this, and nobody talks to anybody.
Right.
Right? And it's fucking terrifying.
We all know it's great to do business with family, right?
Mm-hmm. Or they started the company because of an ex-husband, or I've literally lived through it. We couldn't laugh about this. I've literally lived through it, and I'm like, well, that's not great. Okay. And you have to navigate these waters. And it's no pun intended to the Seawolf. You have to literally navigate these waters. And, you know, this poor schmo had to literally take down warships to build his reputation. And it's in the 30s or 40s amount of ships he took down in a schooner, but they would never promote him to the big ship.
Yeah.
Because they felt like they didn't want to give him the power. They didn't want to congratulate him. They didn't want to give him the kudos.
Yeah.
Because they were worried. But they'd always bring him in when they needed.
Because it wasn't merit-based.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny. Instead of being envious of people's success, you should celebrate everybody's success. Now, when I hear about someone that made $400 million, I don't look and go, he shouldn't make that much money. I go, man, it's great he can make that much money. That means I might be able to make that much money. That's
100%.
Cool.
That's why I say all the time, at least in the tactical world, when I was criticized for bringing in bodybuilding and fitness, and I was criticized for bringing in UFC guys, and I was criticized. There was people that were like,
well, did you take them out and do mag dumps in the desert?
But that's going to take away from what we do.
With that sarcastic comment, I'm going to take a bite.
That's going to take away from what we do. That's going to hurt us, and it's so petty, and it's a very petty argument, and it's a very petty debate. And I wish it would go away in the business, because there's a lot of great Seawolves out there. And I think that they need their place. And I think that they should be heard in the room. And some of them are your Instagram marketing directors, whatever, social media marketing directors. Some of them are your this, some of them are your that. Some of them might even be the CEO. You might have a really good CEO. But I always say this on the show. The best leadership people, there's two types. I say it all the time. I've said it ad nauseum to the people in this room. They hate hearing it. There's the people that assume everybody in the room is smarter than them until proven otherwise, and then there's those that assume they're the smartest person in the room. The latter is the worst person to work for. Always. Because they know everything. You can't tell them, but they've never done it, but they know. And I know many people know what I'm talking about. So, before we digress and go down another rabbit hole, and, I know Ace touched on a number of topics, and there's a lot to pull away. I got a freaking table of notes in front of me. But I hope everybody realizes, listening to this, that there are so many great nuggets in the things that he's saying. And I do think that going forward, we have to begin to fail forward. We have to begin to take steps as an industry to open the door to conversations about these things. And we have to be critical of ourselves constructively, and be able to have that debate and not turn into Karens when we have that debate. That's really important. I'm okay with somebody disagreeing with me. I'm okay with somebody having a dissenting opinion about what I think, whether it's about full autos, whether it's about reciprocity, whether it's about any number of marketing things. But have the debate constructively or come on the show. I'm more than willing to talk to you. But if you're not willing to accept a couple things, where we are today, where the industry is currently, then it's very hard to get into that debate. It's very hard to get into that debate because you have to understand those things. And I'm not interested in the weakest, dumbest argument. I'm interested in the best argument on a position because that's what's going to move it forward. So it becomes a toolkit to operate effectively. And if you can't incorporate facts into your position, then you have a weak position. But you have to be able to incorporate the facts, and you have to be willing to be constructive. And
facts matter, but sometimes intuition matters too. Sometimes you don't have the data,
but you can present the best version of the argument,
right?
And you have to have diversity in the discussion, but you have to be willing to have the discussion. And if you have a weak position, don't be afraid to say, "I think Ace is right on this."
I have a secret. I have to bare my soul a little bit. I went against my own advice, and I did not have the attitude of abundance for a while.
I'll tell you the flaw with your argument, Ace.
Which flaw? Which argument and which flaw?
No.
Because I got a lot of them, but
you're gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh at this.
I'll tell you before you even say it. Clearly, you're wrong, but that's okay.
The culture of the reason everything you're saying makes sense, but in the eyes of the industry, it's going to tie everything in. Then we can wrap and eat something. But the attitude of the industry is, I'm worse off because you're better off.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to let you bring it home on that.
Because that happens all the time. What I was going to tell you, when I bare my soul, I went against my abundance mentality. And you might have heard there is a relatively new caliber out there. It's called the 6.5 Creedmoor, and it kills things at 1,000,000 miles away, and it's magic, and it does everything. And I'm a traditional guy. I'm a hunter at heart, and I think I kind of think of myself as a high-level hunter and a high-level, not ballistician, but my knowledge of cartridges and calibers and their performance, I would say, is well up there. I'm probably not, I'm certainly no Ron Spomer. Little plug there for Ron Spomer. I'm not a Phil Massaro, another great ballistician guy. Phil has a tremendous amount of knowledge and is a good dude to boot. But I know what these things do, and I've killed a lot of stuff with them, right? And I took one look at the 6.5 Creedmoor, and I was like, meh, 6.5 Creedmoor. But look at where that cartridge has come from, right? Look where it started and look where it is now. There's a really good chance that that's going to be adopted by a lot of the military over the 308, over the 5.56, over a lot of other potentials that some might argue might have been a little better, right? So I got to tell you now, I'm a big fan. I got two, not one, but two of those. And I think one of the things that'll help people take the shortest path to success is not just to know what decisions to make, not just to know when to take the risk, but know when to open yourself and realize, hey, you know what? I think I'm wrong about this. I looked at this and I really didn't, but I think there's a lot of potential for this. There's a lot of potential for this cartridge. And yeah, a 25-06 will do everything it does, but you can't put a 25-06 in a standard length AR platform. It just doesn't happen. So I think that we all need to look deep inside sometimes, and we all need to look and say, okay, you know what? I made that decision, or I said that thing, or I did this, and, I might have been wrong on that, or I might have judged this person wrong. And I always tell people all the time, if you think I'm wrong, I'm right here to listen to you tell me why. I think, and I don't want you to just tell me I'm wrong. I want you to tell me why I'm wrong, because I think we all can learn. And let's face it, if I didn't have confidence, I wouldn't be where I am in the world. But I'm also humble enough to know, you know what? I know a lot. I don't know it all. There's a lot of people that know more than me. And I've had people come to me and say, you know what? You screwed up. This wasn't right. You said this and it was wrong. And have convinced me, have changed my paradigm and my position, and it sometimes eating crow, it's never a pleasant process, but sometimes it's cathartic. We all need to do it sometimes.
And that's true. It's incredibly accurate. Like I said, this industry needs to move past your success is bad for me.
Right.
And it needs to take a quantum leap forward. And I hope that it does. We're 2.5 hours in. I want to eat. You got to go. I appreciate it. Appreciate you. Here. Let everybody know where to contact you, how to reach out, and where the best place is. I know LinkedIn's a big platform for you.
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me easily at Luciano.com. That's ACELUCIANO.com. I'm not a hard dude to find. If you Google me, if you Google Ace Luciano, I want to give you a big hint. I'm not the black rapper. He's a different Ace Luciano.
Well, we hope so after this.
And that dude hates me because for like years, for a decade,
you're fucking up his SEO.
I've dominated all the searches and such for SEO. You search videos and stuff, and up comes my Benelli video on the Benelli ethos right there. And
I'm
below
up against,
me is,
yeah. I'm up against a battle with Bartolo Colon, the pitcher. He's like page 3, Bartolo.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
And there's a couple other guys.
They need new marketing people. That's just it. They should call me. I could give them some pointers.
Pointers on SEO. I appreciate it. I want to take a minute. I want to thank all the sponsors, and I want to thank Ace, but I want to thank the sponsors. I want to thank Gallo Technologies for the walls behind us, Rhino Metals for all the tables, Blackwater Ammunition, Galco Leather Holsters, Enforce Weapon Lights, Full Courts and Firearms, Right On Optics, which we plugged a shitload. Brady, you owe me money. You owe Ace money, actually, too. Yeah, it's funny.
I'll take it in some. Yeah, I'll take it in some product. I haven't used lately.
And then I want to take a minute and thank Ace for coming out. We could go for hours. I think 2.5 is enough for now. There's plenty to chew on after this. I appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate Ace. I want to thank Kuyu Clothing too. Shout out to Kuyu. If anyone's interested in clothing, go check out Kuyu. Looking forward to the next episode coming up. Please leave reviews. I do a terrible job asking for them. Leave the reviews on iTunes, everywhere podcasts are heard. Go give us a listen. We're out.